Oh, look at that. That worked. I should do that more often. Welcome to the council meeting for the 2nd of October. Please stand with me for the opening karakia. Whakatū ki uru, whakatū hau ki te tonga, me ana kina te uta, kia mātatara ka te kai, he ake ane atua, tiho te huka ahu, tihai mariora. Right. Now, just before I get on to apologies, and because it's advertising time, I went to, if anyone's watching out there and is thinking of going to Mamma Mia at the Theatre Royal, please go. It is bloody good. You will not be disappointed. Okay, that's enough. Right, I have some apologies from Councillors Coker, Goff, Kewen and Peters for absence. I notice that Councillor Kewen's on Zoom, Councillor Johansson's on Zoom. I have this mover, I'll move it, and Councillor Cotter will second it. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. It's carried. We have no declarations of interest, so we'll rip into our public forums. The first one today is Mike McCaleb, who's here on behalf of White Rock Community Incorporated Society to talk about freshwater rules and the burden of landfill activity on small rural communities. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, Your Worship, Mayor. Thank you for your time and attention this morning. My name is Mike McCaleb, and I'm the self-appointed unelected mayor of White Rock. You may or may not have seen me on the front page of the press recently or some other media. I didn't welcome this intention. I'm naturally very camera shy. I was sort of forced into it. I was just minding my own business, really. I wish to call to your attention a resource consent application which is currently before the Waimakariri District Council and Environment Canterbury. This application for a small 4 hectare class 3 landfill in White Rock, North Canterbury, where I live, is just a couple of kilometres up the river from my home on the Karatu River. I'm opposed to this application because I believe it poses a threat to the river, which runs through the quarry property and through my property and is the source of my drinking water supply and also a dozen other families who live in White Rock. And also ultimately the Okuku, Ashley River, and the aquifer underneath us all. You might well ask, why should we be concerned? We are not the Waimakariri District Council, and we don't live in White Rock, and aren't you, Mr. McCaleb, just another NIMBY sticking his pointy little American nose where it doesn't belong? Well, I'd like to point out a situation that exists in Canterbury, and I describe it as earth movers, greatly enriched by the demolition of Christchurch after the earthquakes, who are staffed up, geared up, and intent on further enriching themselves. Nothing against earth movers, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure many of them are great guys.
I know.
These earth movers have been forced out of the city limits by freshwater groundwater protection measures within the Christchurch city limits onto surrounding districts with lesser regulation. They are intent on gaming the RMA in the process I like to describe as, if you have enough money and enough time, you can do whatever you want. If this is indeed true, then most of us should also agree that's not a good system. Alas, it is the system that we're in. Canterbury councils have been repeatedly attacked with proposals to dispose of Christchurch waste out of sight, out of mind of Christchurch residents, and this is a tremendous burden on the surrounding councils, on the residents of small rural communities such as the one I live in. I live in White Rock because I treasure the fresh air and the clean water and the quiet solitude. As my neighbor likes to say, you know what I love about White Rock? You hear that? Nothing. Our rural roads aren't equipped to handle the heavy truck traffic. Like many people in the city, many of us would like our children to walk to school or to bike to school or even ride their horses, but this isn't really possible on narrow country roads with the industrial traffic and 20-ton B trains moving at 100 kilometers an hour. We don't wish to be the depository for contaminated soils from Christchurch just because we are less densely populated, just because there are fewer of us to complain, just because we have chosen to live rurally. We should have the same rights. Cape Valley, being majority-minority owned by the Christchurch City Council and 4 other Canterbury councils, was developed just over 20 years ago with a vision of being a multi-generational landfill, a world-class private-public partnership. When it opened, there were more than 50 small landfills that were closed at the time. Despite the incredible waste generated by the earthquakes, Cape Valley is still on track to hold the amount of waste it was consented to hold, and as a world-leading facility, it's capable of being consented to hold decades more waste. Through a loophole in regulation, the fees to dump at Class 1 landfill are greater than at a Class 3 landfill, regardless of the classification of the waste. What may be helpful are additional regulations to force construction companies to at least try to recycle more of their building waste. Fines, financial incentives, that may be the way to encourage best practice. I understand and appreciate the need for more housing. This shouldn't come at the cost of despoiling rural communities. Intensification is supposed to be a tool to address this. What I'm here to ask you to do, I'm not quite certain. I could ask you to submit against this resource consent proposal individually or as a group, and I am asking you to do that. But I'm also asking you to consider the impacts of these rules made for the city limits, which impact rural communities, and I'm asking you to consult and work closely with the surrounding councils for practical solutions to Canterbury-wide problems. If this waste has been determined to be a threat to the health of the Christchurch aquifer, it is no less a threat if it's trucked 40 minutes out of town, and the transportation only exacerbates the cost of the environment. The water I drink is no less valuable than the water you drink. I appreciate your time. I request that you consider opportunities to support our cause. Our website has a link. It's easy to follow in the submissions guide. Thank you for your time. Kia ora.
You must have practiced that because it's dead right timing. So thank you very much. That's very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Tom.
consideration.
It has certainly been talked to us by Waimakariri already.
Great.
Thank you.
Great to know it. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now hear from Dominique from the Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust, who will talk about the work the Trust has been doing and the increasing demand for their services. Good morning.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko airahi ingari, te whakapaparanga mai ingari, ko otatahi te whenua tupu, ko otu tohu kai te kāinga. I'm going to take my glasses off. Kei whakaraupo o e noho ana ko Dominique o tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, sorry for fumbling that somewhat. And thank you very much for having us here today. Catherine Jones, our wonderful CEO, sends her apologies as she's unwell and she's asked me to step in for her. The Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust was established in Christchurch in the late 1970s as a result of Lady Laura Ferguson, the wife of the last British appointed Governor-General to New Zealand. When she visited rest homes around the country, she noticed that there were a lot of young people with disabilities living in aged care facilities, and she thought that there must be something much better available for them and more age appropriate. And that is how the Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust was established here. There are two others, one in Wellington and one in Auckland, and they're all separately run. What surprised me when I joined the Trust was the prevalence of traumatic brain injuries, and most particularly that 50% of the people who experience traumatic brain injuries are young, aged between 15 and 34. The causes, of course, are myriad, but what is most important is the impact of traumatic brain injury. For people, can be horrendously long-term, but most particularly concerning is the level of prevalence of traumatic brain injury on young people who are in our youth justice system, and also those who are impacted by domestic violence. Strangulation causes traumatic brain injuries. Our job is to help people on that road to rehabilitation. So post that primary healthcare intervention, we help them with everything from learning to drive again, transitioning back to work, how to live well, their best life and as independently as they possibly can. We also run a social enterprise, Can Do Catering, and I'd like to thank the council because you're clients of ours. We have 11 staff members at the moment working at Can Do who have suffered traumatic brain injuries, so we help them transition back to work. We do believe, we do believe that we are well aligned with the council's strategic priorities. I'm now going to share with you a short video that gives you a better sense of our work, and I'm hoping your technical people can help with that.
The if we didn't exist, there would be a significant number of people would not be able to access the services that they require. So if you were to have a major motor vehicle accident and have multiple trauma, Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust provides you with all of those services to support you to recover and everything in between.
So it was in January 2020. I was riding a mountain bike up here on the Port Hills in Christchurch with a friend of mine. Had a crash of sorts, went over the handlebars. I had bruising and bleeding on my brain, mainly to the frontal lobe and the rear of my brain, as it rocked around when it impacted my skull. The outcomes of that were I had a lot of photosensitivity. My cognitive skills were really poor, so that was down to walking, talking. I had trouble making decisions, understanding complex pieces of information. I've had a lot of interactions with the Laura Ferguson teams. They took the time to understand who I was pre-accident. So I guess in a way I felt quite lucky that I had all of those people wrapped around me.
Our team of 240 specialised staff work together to provide community-based rehabilitation and support clients in our 24-hour residential care homes with specialised therapists, support and education and activity programmes.
I was riding my horse at home and she slipped over. I was knocked out straight away. I was in a coma for 30 days. The Laura Ferguson Brain Injury Trust helped me massively, and I just can't express my gratitude to everyone that helped me out, because my life would not be the same as it is right now.
It's just so invaluable that we have services like these guys and what they do. They don't just help people get their lives back to normal, but they help people's families. And I don't think you could put a price on that at all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got one question and only one. Tyler, please.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Those statistics are absolutely staggering.
If we didn't exist,
youth statistics.
there would be a significant...
I was actually wanting to catch up with you and the team offline to see if we can actually talk through a bit more of what you're seeing around brain injury. That'd
Absolutely.
be fantastic.
We'd love that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you very
Thank
much. Okie dokie. Next, we have Stuart and Christine from Kairos Food Rescue, who will talk about their collaboration with community hubs across Christchurch and opportunities to improve food security. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
went down and visited earlier this week, or late last week, and it's a pleasure to see what you're up to. So well done. Carry on.
Thank you for having us. Good morning, everyone. So Kairos Rescue Food, Feed People, Build Community. That's what we're essentially about. We're processing 70 tonnes a month of food that is perfectly edible, that is coming from all sorts of sources, from supermarkets, cafes, catering companies, school lunches. We're diverting that instead of going to landfill, and we're putting that out so that people can get fed. It's costing us about 92 cents per kg to rescue it, sort it, and then supply it out to the other groups in the city. We've got 7 trucks on the road, vans and trucks on the road going around collecting it and then sorting it. We have over 250 volunteers, and we have about 350 volunteer hours per week. And you can see some of the logos on the screen of some of the places, the schools that come in. We have corporate people come in. We've had so many people come through and volunteer. You're all welcome to come down as well and volunteer with us. We have 150 people come to our free store, so that's the Chewham Street facing end. And if you drive down Chewham Street now, you'll see a wonderful mural that is getting painted on that building. And we're reaching over 190 people a night. We know this because when people at the end of the night getting the food that they've looked at and chosen, we weigh the basket and we ask how many people are they reaching. We help feed the recipient and those in their house for today. We are not a food bank. That is one of the differences about us. They're getting about a supermarket basket worth of food. That's approximately $80 in value. And as I say, we're reaching over 190 people a night with that food. So quite different our free store end from the bulk food distribution at the other end of the building if you've been to see us. We're supplying over 59 food banks regularly across the city, and this has doubled since 2023. and obviously there's reasons why that's happened there. We actually are reaching 75 groups, but some of those are one-offs or just school holiday programs and things like that. So it's quite a wide reach of food. There's a lot of the places that we have dealings with regularly on a day-to-day basis. You'll recognise a lot of the logos up there that we do reach and support with food that then helps the people in those communities around them. So, community-led approach to food sovereignty through existing collaboration. We want to work with all the food banks, and there is the Christchurch Food Bank Network, which has been going for a long time. It was working really well after the era of COVID. We still meet regularly. We want to work stronger with them to make food sovereignty better in Christchurch. Christchurch is one of the easiest places in New Zealand to get food if you need it, if you're hungry, but in some ways there's too many groups doing it. And are people double dipping? What's the need versus demand? There's lots of questions that have to be answered and talked about there. We've recently just had an annual event. We're going to be doing it more, bringing people and corporate and community partners support food and food sovereignty. And we had a fantastic night you would have seen in the press where we were at the Shadow on the Park. A lot of people came and supported us. And this morning we just had the trolley dash that was an auction item at Woolworths at Hornby, so that'll be in the media today as well. So our strength is the trusted relationships with partners to transform communities through collaboration. That's probably what I'm most passionate about, is actually working together. We want to be a hand up to people, not a hand out. What does that mean? Well, just putting a table out of food and letting people help themselves and people keep coming back, that's just a hand out. A hand up is when we work with other agencies and people can get the support around them so that they find themselves not in a place needing this food. That's it. So that's essentially who we are and what we do. Well under the time there, Mia, so love to take some questions if anyone's got questions.
Andre?
Actually, very curious to know how much the trolley dash went for at auction.
Yeah, it was over $1,000, and they got $1,700 of value. It was
Oh, right.
They were very
So
strategic in their dash of what they grabbed.
they mapped that stuff out. I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
Nice work, thank you.
Victoria?
Thank you. One of the issues we face with people who find themselves in this position often is that actually they don't know how to cook or what to do with your food. And so they're looking for ready-made, easy options. Do you engage with other agencies and have some education programs around learning to make meals from scratch?
Yeah, so there's a lot of recipes out there, but one of the honest problems we're finding is a lot of people living in their homes with no power. And so they might have access to food, but they haven't got access to power. So that's part of the food sovereignty. We do collect food from... we do a lot of work with the supermarkets, for example. In one supermarket, we found out that they were taking the breast off the chicken and shredding it and discarding the rest of the chicken. We now, through working with that supermarket, collect that food. We take it and it goes out to a camp. And while they're cooking camp food for the people staying at the camp, they're making soup for us with that. And then that comes back to us and goes out to groups like Drug Arm and other groups as well. So we're always looking for ways too that we can help with that, because soup's just got to be heated, but again you need power or gas to heat that. So
Coming from a large family, my mother made 3 meals out of a chicken.
yes, yeah.
Thank you. One of the things that really struck me down there is how you beg, steal and borrow stuff off people, like you'll carry baskets that have been from, I'll say Countdown, I don't know who it's from, and you take the name off the side and you put your own name on, because they don't want them, they were going to biff them, so you're reusing stuff. But the thing that really stuck in my mind is, and sort of how can we get more people here, because these guys are right across the road from the stadium, okay? If we get to a point where we can have the public going through the stadium as to visit, just to look while it's under, later on when it's constructed a bit more, if we have it that people can go, instead of doing a gold coin or something like that, they get in by bringing a can of food. Any can doesn't matter. Every person that goes in, you drop it in one of your big baskets there, and because cans are good for you because it's got a long shelf life.
Absolutely, and that will help all the food banks in the city. One of the biggest things they all ask us for is canned food, and it's very scarce now, so that we would be able to distribute that right out across the city, across all those agencies. So. Yeah.
But that was your idea to use that as an entry, as a fee, so to speak, to get in. So if we can maybe push that a little bit further, I'd be right behind it. So thank you very much for what you're doing. It is very, very good.
So
Thank
Kelly and I will bring that to the board.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So we'll do that. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Good on you. Okie dokie. So now we have David Lynch and Professor Al Kaizi, who are here to talk about lessons learned from the February 2011 earthquakes. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I'm adding both of you guys together, so you've got 10 minutes.
Yes, just Mr. Mayor, if I can be a little bit creative with you today, I'm doing a deputation later on that will provide me 10 minutes. On reflection, I believe, given the matter that I'm speaking to and followed by Professor Al-Khalzi, with greatest respect, we cannot be rushed on this, given what we're representing. And I'm sure your colleagues would agree that I'll be creative in the sense that I'll forego the 10 minutes to allow us to speak and not be rushed. And I hope that
Right, so maybe you'll...
Absolutely.
Yep.
Before I start, if I can just say that I have Mr. Al-Khalzi's address, which we'll send electronically, so whoever would like to take that and distribute it to you,
I got it.
that would be great. And this is for your lounge, sir. And the reason that we're here, to remind you lessons learned for the 185 people that lost their lives all those years ago. And if I'll give that to you now, and you can...
You want to put it down there?
We have a video that we'd like to, I'd like to share with you now to set the scene as to why I'm here, which is to reflect on the last nearly 14 years from the earthquakes, and then Professor Manuel Khalzi will speak specifically about a concerning observation he saw recently. So if we could show that video, thank you.
My name is Gerardo Torres, and I came to New Zealand over 25 years ago. And the reason why I came here is because my sister married a Kiwi gentleman, and they married in Peru, and they came to New Zealand before me. A few years later, my sister recommended us to come to join the family here. We are 3 children. We were 3 children. When the earthquake struck, so we were frightened because we felt strongly, but we didn't see big damage in that area. Well, I was hoping that she was somewhere in there, maybe out of the building, but as soon as I saw very close the building that collapsed, and I saw just smoke, big smoke and fire, and helicopters throwing water from the sky. So I realized that she was in big danger. It took me weeks to realize, because a lot of people were approaching and saying, you have to believe in miracles. And yeah, I was just, every night it was a nightmare for me, waiting and waiting for news. Till, yeah, finally, yeah, little by little, the hope was dying. Love your family, love your friends, but tell them now, not tomorrow, because tomorrow we don't know what's gonna happen. Remember the earthquake, and maybe tomorrow it will be late. This is the lesson I learned.
Thank you and good morning. My name is David Lynch. I'm here today as Director of Momentous Public Relations and also, more importantly, in support of the CTV families who I've been assisting over the last 13 or so years. And joining me is Professor Alkazi, the spokesperson for the group. He will follow my address with a specific issue that he's identified that he felt was critically important to raise today. The video tribute you just watched, made by Gerardo Torres for his sister Elsa, was one of the 115 victims in the CTV building collapse, was created before his sudden passing in October 2022. I first met him nearly 20 years ago when I hired his Latin band for an event, and our paths crossed again, sadly, with the earthquake, when I realised he in the room was one of the families who had lost someone. Gerardo's tribute, I think, reminds us of the importance of not waiting until tomorrow to speak the truth. We must find the strength sometimes and dig deep to find what really needs to be said today. And that's why I'm here today, to reflect on the last almost 14 years. If Gerardo was here today, I'm certain that he would be supporting this presentation as it highlights the painful reality that the lessons of the 2011 earthquake, in some cases, I say, has not been fully learned. While there has undeniably been significant lessons learned, such as the innovative engineering that we saw at Christchurch with on the corner of Beeley Avenue and Victoria Street, there are contrasting examples of significant failures. One stark example of this, the 8-storey building at 230 High Street, which has been deemed to be too weak to withstand an earthquake due to technical engineering deficiencies. This building remains standing with the possibility that it may need to be demolished. What is of even more alarm to me is that when I sought clarification from staff some years ago whether this was an isolated case, they were unable to look me in the eye and effectively say no. And what that means, it creates uncertainty and a troubling concern about the possibility that there may be other buildings that have been built that have subsequently got similar issues. And these are things that, Mr. Mayor and councillors, we need to look at and ask the question, well, what if there are and what do we do? Additionally, as you'll hear from Professor Alkazi in detail, narrow roads, new measures, raised pedestrian crossings to limit car access to the city is concerning. After speaking myself with Fire and Emergency New Zealand, it's become clear that these changes may delay emergency responses, potentially resulting in the loss of life or the complete destruction of buildings in the event that they can't get to a fire quickly enough. Professor Alkazi will speak of a specific example he witnessed the other day. And I've spoken to the fire service and they really feel that they need to be better engaged by this council, and I'm sure that applies to St John and the police. Another pressing concern is tree safety, which I'm talking about later on. I won't go into that now. And finally, heading towards 2018, there was a report that surfaced about non-complying steel being dumped in this country. The steel could be hidden, waiting for another seismic event. Do we know that there's any of that steel in the city? These are the things that we have to look at. Finally, this week, the Building and Construction Minister announced significant proposed changes to the building consent process, raising serious concerns about potential shortcuts that could increase the risk of another disaster like the CTV building collapse. While these reforms are intended to streamline the process, there is a genuine fear from the people I've spoken to and canvassed recently that this may lead to failures and endanger lives. As a council, we need to understand and be proactive, or you need to be proactive with the minister. To address the pressing concerns that I've just touched on, number one, a thorough structural audit. The council must immediately disclose to the public where, in fact, 230 High Street, is it an isolated example or part of a broader structural issue? The fact that the 8-storey building has been found too weak to withstand an earthquake due to 10 technical engineering deficiencies is deeply concerning, especially given the potential risk to public safety. Equally alarming is that, as I've said, several years ago I spoke to staff and they could not give me an answer that it was an isolated example. That should be of concern to you all. Transparency is not only a matter of public interest, but it's a crucial step in ensuring safety for residents. The council owes it to the public to conduct a thorough investigation into these concerns, to disclose the findings, and if other buildings are at risk, present a clear action plan with measures that will be taken when necessary, etc. The consenting reforms. The Council should, as I've said, advocate for careful review of the proposed building consent reforms by the national government. While streamlining the process is important, safety should never be compromised. We learnt that from CTV, and lessons must be learned. The Council must push for the safeguards to ensure that any changes do not lead to shortcuts that could endanger lives. Number 3, consultation with emergency services before implementing any new road designs or pedestrian measures. This Council should work more closely with fire and emergency and all the emergency services to ensure that any changes do not negatively impact on their response times. Road designs must accommodate the needs of emergency vehicles, particularly in densely populated or high-risk areas. Tree safety, I won't talk about that. I've already documented my thoughts about that, other than to say we had a large tree fall down in Hackley Park recently or last year, and I don't believe that's been appropriately investigated in respect to the trees that remain. Number 5, investigate and ban any issues in respect of materials that come to this country that could be a compromise. By taking these actions, the Council can proactively address safety risks and reassure this community that lessons from 2011 have in fact been learned. Under the Local Government Act, I do request that I get a full response in writing to the matters I've raised, and I would make myself available to meet with staff to expand further on these matters. Thank you for allowing me the extra time, Mr. Mayor. I'd now like to ask Professor Alkazi to address you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor and Councillor of the Christchurch City Council General Managers, Kira, and good morning. My name is Manal Casey, and I'm an Emeritus Professor at University of Canterbury. I'm also the spokesperson for the families who lost loved ones at the CTP building back in 22nd February 2011. I joined Canterbury University in January 1996, and I remember there was roadwork then. And I retired 2 years ago, and there was roadwork going on around the university. My understanding there's going to be more roadwork till 2026. Roadwork is essential to maintain the integrity and safety of our roads. The city must have definitely put significant effort and spend millions, if not billions, on roading since the earthquake. What concerned me is the substandard of some of our city roads and the outcome after prolonged closure. We found our roads full with potholes and patches and impose discomfort, danger to road users, and disruption to all commuters and public services. But what triggers me to come to the City Council today is what I witnessed on Sunday, the 22nd of September, around lunchtime. 2 fire engines on Durham Street, opposite to the River Market, sounding their siren and cannot move because of the heavy traffic and narrow roadings. The firemen started to sound their horn out of desperation with no or little outcome. It looks that we have actually choked the city center of Christchurch. The situation immediately reminded me with what happened on the 22nd of February 2011, when we experienced total chaos, disorganization, and no coordination between the essential life-saving services. My question to the Council is, do we have an effective emergency plan that can be activated fast enough when needed? How emergency services like fire, police, ambulances, and search and rescue teams can operate coordinate and communicate to minimize casualties. Our city is prone to earthquakes, and that is a fact. We have to be prepared. We should have learned from our past experience and ensure the city will perform much better to save lives in case of any natural disasters. Thank you for allowing me to address this council. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Professor. We've got Jake, got a question?
Thanks, gentlemen, for coming in. In your conversations with FENS, have they been able to produce any stats or proven statistics about what the delay they're now facing on certain routes?
That is available if you wish to Google it. It's there. It's international. It's shown that every time you have a fire appliance gear down and have to gear up, it's that they've got internationally the stats. I'm surprised the council staff haven't looked into that, but it's a significant issue. And there are, look, don't get me wrong, there is a place for road calming when it comes to kiddie safety.
Because that's the other...
But I know on our own street, we're a main street where St. John take patients to the Burwood Spinal Unit. Can you imagine now going over that bump? That creates a problem for them. We see the police having to slow down, but the fire service, they're heavy trucks. They have to gear down. Every single one of those humps that are unnecessary, and there are a number in the city that are unnecessary and should be removed urgently, is going to potentially get an appliance to a scene and save lives. You should all be concerned about that.
I would just ask both of you to reflect upon our dual mandate to both enable emergency services to get to where they need to go in a timely manner, but also safe environments on the road, because that saves lives too.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, Tim.
Thank you, sir. Professor, in answer to your question, we have an outstanding emergency service plan. We have an emergency service precinct next to the court building where they are all put together. They work very closely together, and the plans are outstanding and country leading. So just to reassure, but an emergency is an emergency and a crisis is a crisis, and we do the best we can. But I think we have an outstanding team there, and you can be rest assured that they are the best in the country. With regards to you, David, we've talked about this before. The example I would use is the Lincoln Road, Whiteley Ave intersection. No one in the city, I believe, really went through there and cared about that community. It took that rise in that intersection to make people slow down and respect that community, so they are safely crossing that major intersection. Kids to school, disabled, etc. It was just a nightmare beforehand. Yes, there are counters to that with emergency services, but as Jake said, that the accidents kill people. We've got to do something. The drivers, the public that are driving through those communities don't care. They really don't. We have to do things. And that community has really, really prospered with that rise. I remember listening to John McDonald and a woman from Governor's Bay. They were laughing when she said she hit it and actually got airborne. And John McDonald laughed as well. I mean, who can drive through that fast through a community? Yes, there are negatives, but there are also positives.
Look, with great respect, I understand and respect what you're saying, but tell that to someone that's waiting for that fire appliance that's been hit by a drunk driver in a car, and that fire appliance is a lot slower because of humps that are unnecessary. So there is a balance. I'm just asking the council to take that into consideration.
Yep, got Tyler.
Kia ora, gentlemen. I'd like to acknowledge both of you for coming in. Thank you so much. I'm going to steer away from the road safety stuff, and I want to just elaborate on a couple of the points that you've raised. And the first one is around the building consent reforms.
Yes.
If you're across it, it's okay if you're not. But is there anything that you're welcoming of the national government?
Look, at this stage, it's happened rather quickly, and I'm going to be personally engaging the Minister through a professional capacity. So at this stage, I've raised basically an initial comment, which will require a more informed consideration.
No worries. And the next question is around the substandard steel. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Well, I understand there was an example in the Britomart where there was a derailment, and when they examined the steel, it was imported steel. Fortunately, the derailment was a minor matter. No one was badly injured. But we just don't know where potentially steel that shouldn't be considered, well, steel that may well not be compliant and able to respond in a time of a seismic event like we've had in Christchurch. I just think we need to realise that it's here, and it's a little bit like the leaky homes. It's there waiting to cause a problem potentially, and needs to be understood by this council.
Okay, so the locally produced steel obviously will be compliant.
Oh, look, here in New Zealand,
but the question
they do a
mark
thorough
around
job.
internationally.
Yes, I think it needs to be looked into.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And lastly, Celeste.
Thank you both for your presentation, and thank you, Professor, for coming in. And I appreciate the feedback you're providing us and the questions you've given us, and I assume that we'll be able to come back with some more specifics around that emergency response plan, in addition to the response from Councillor Scandrett. I just had a question, because there was 2 points there around the narrow road markings, but you also mentioned heavy traffic was the other concern.
Well, probably one led to the other. But in general, it happened on the 22nd, lunchtime. Kinda immediately reminded me of the 22nd of February, 2011, and how the city was really in total chaos. But I mean, I'm pleased to listen and understand that we are better prepared, and this is why I am here, just to ask you, please be prepared. I mean, only yesterday we had a magnitude 5 earthquake in Sweden, so it will happen, unfortunately, and we just have to be prepared. We just have to make our city safer.
Thank you, Pauline.
I just want to reinforce what Councillor Tyler Harrison-Hunt was saying. I thank you for raising the building consent changes that are proposed. We're going to be asked for feedback on that, and I think you've pointed out, reminding us we have 2 very good examples here where there were issues with buildings, and I think that when you're looking to streamline and find efficiencies in these things, you've also got to be very careful to make sure you get it right, so we can actually use this as well in our feedback. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll just wrap it up. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in. I do agree with you that there are some raised platforms and lumps that are not necessary. It's not all. It's not blanket all. But I understand, and you've agreed to that. So we've just got to, I think, talk to the foreign emergency, talk to the others, and say, well, which are your worst ones? Which are giving you the most grief? Because we seem to be mad keen on still chucking them in everywhere. So we'll see how we go. So thank you very much for coming in. Now, David, you've gobbled up all your tree stuff, so you'll have to make another time to come and see us.
That's fine. I'm sure the staff will welcome you back for a private conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your understanding.
Could we arrange a meeting with emergency services to talk about this as councillors?
That's a great idea.
Because it would be really good to get an understanding of the issues. Thank you.
Excellent. Righty-ho. So, Kai, I'll welcome Annie from the Kāinga Maiha Trust to come talk to us about the work the Trust is doing and speak to item 23, the Sandylands Housing Complex. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Annie Wilson toko ingoa no Hungary a Yorkshire, England o Kutipuna, ke te noho ki Rangiora Waitahi. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, everybody. I'm the General Manager of an organisation called Kāinga Maha. We were known as Kāinga Maha Trust. We're actually known as Kāinga Maha Limited now. However, we remain a wholly charitable company. We're entirely owned by a charitable trust called Home Foundation. We were established around 4 years ago, primarily with a vision to see that every Kiwi has a home that they can afford and a place that they can thrive. We recognise that homelessness is a key issue, but it's more than just houselessness. Actually, what we're about as an organisation and as a collective of organisations is that we seek to address the needs across the whole spectrum of need. So we are a developer, Kangamaha. We've got extensive experience here in Christchurch of developing mixed communities. That was most recently seen on our development, the Residences of Karamu, which has been complete for about 2 years, comprising of 84 homes, of which we have 28 social housing homes. We have a mixture of first home buyer housing that was sold at around 35% below the asking and valuation price. And then we have some private sale housing. And we built that community, we purchased the land commercially, but we were entirely focused on delivering broader outcomes and a mixture of addressing a mixture of housing needs. As an organisation, we are also developing currently our next project in New Brighton, where we purchased the land from Christchurch NZ about 2 years ago. And we're delivering 63 homes, again, recognising actually the needs of New Brighton and Otatahi Christchurch, but recognising actually we need a different tenure mix. So in New Brighton, we're delivering a mixture of affordable rental housing, so housing that will be leased and rented at a discounted rent, enabling those working whānau who are integral to the success and economic regeneration of New Brighton to actually have a home that they can afford. We've got a mixture of progressive home ownership as well, so where we provide genuine pathways for affordable home ownership. We'll be selling the homes at 65% of the market value, enabling whānau to have access to home ownership who have a lower income and would not otherwise be able to afford a house. And we also will be providing some market sale housing because we need housing for those that can afford to meet their needs as well. As an organisation, we are absolutely committed to delivering housing that addresses needs. So unlike a conventional approach to most developers, we're driven by very different metrics. Our success and return, if you like, is quite different. We work in a commercial sphere, so we have to make our projects stack. However, our bottom line is a little bit different. We have what we call a three-tier bottom line. We think about people, so taking a people-centered approach, thinking about the community, how we actually respond positively to local need, engage and collaborate with the local community to drive actually longer term outcomes than just the activity of being a developer and building homes. We also think about the planet. So a key part of what we do, construction, as we've heard earlier, has a big impact on the environment. And so as an organisation, we're absolutely committed to reducing our carbon footprint. We build our homes to a minimum of Home Star 7, but also seek to target at the very least 80% deviation from landfill during the course of the construction as well. And of course, the final bottom line is place. So we build communities. Kangamaha means many homes. So we see ourselves as not just a developer, but actually a community creator. So that means we look at development solutions quite differently to a conventional developer, where we will actually think about what makes a place successful, not just as a successful development at the end that is delivered on time, on budget, can be funded, but actually how will people live here? How do we need to design the open spaces and the shared spaces to ensure that we're driving and enabling community cohesion rather than the opposite? So we've worked with a number of organisations here in Christchurch, but also nationally as well. As a for-purpose developer, we obviously have different drivers, as I've described, but we also have the same parameters that a conventional developer, particularly development economics, that we have to adhere to. You know, projects need to be funded, they need to be deliverable, but we, when looking at projects and not seeking to maximise perhaps density and yield, but actually respond to local identified need, which may mean a lower density and a very different type of typology. Viability is constrained. So we're very, very grateful, and I just want to acknowledge the work that Christchurch City Council has done as being a real enabler of affordable housing, and that's really been testament to the success that we were able to achieve on Karamu and also at Tobacco in New Brighton. So we have been involved and we've been working with council officers on Sandilands for almost a year. It's coming up about 9-10 months now. And we were really excited about the aspiration that there was an opportunity with this collection of parcels to deliver and unlock affordable housing. Now, we see a huge potential to deliver across the range of needs. As I say, we deliver mixed communities, but we respond to the local need. And so for Sandilands, given the local context, we see that there's a real opportunity to deliver for first home buyers, for the older ageing population who haven't otherwise really got the choice or are incentivized often to downsize. So we see that there's a real potential to deliver warm, dry, safe, affordable housing that will enable downsizing and release much needed affordable or family-sized housing for those who need it. We also see that there's a real potential to deliver some genuine affordable home ownership options as well. We'd love to explore how we can deliver perhaps some progressive home ownership, some affordable rentals, some market sale housing as well, and multi-generational housing as well, recognising a need for whānau to live with their ageing population as well. Affordability is often a term that is used but not well defined. And for us, when we talk about affordability, we don't actually just mean cheaper, smaller housing. We mean genuinely affordable to those that are on median incomes. Now that is very challenging, as I'm sure is no surprise to you, given construction prices. So we need to think about alternative products like progressive home ownership, affordable rentals, rent to buy, to enable that affordability. And also, we also think about affordability not just in the terms of how affordable is a house to rent or to purchase from that initial outset, but actually thinking long term. So thinking about how affordable will that home be to run, to heat, to operate, and what are the actual indirect costs of poor quality housing on health, education, and connection as well. So that drives different behaviours, different choices for us. As I say, we deliver to Homestar 7. We've seen the success and the benefits that Homestar 7 and a more enhanced home has on people's lives. And so these things cost a little bit of money and make us work really hard on our projects. But we're excited to be working with Christchurch NZ and exploring the opportunity to partner to enable more affordable housing to be unlocked. And I thank you for the opportunity today to talk to you.
Okie doke. Thank you. That's very good. Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. It is amazing. One of the areas that seems to fall through everybody's gap is the wraparound service for those people, whether they're homeless or whatever, that could have head injuries, could be drugged or whatever, that they almost like a group of bed sits that are secured and have, for want of a better term, a minder or a caregiver to and I think models are like 6 units and they are looked after with the 7th unit being the minder, etc. No one seems to be looking at that, and that is an area that's missing at the moment. Have you ever looked at that, or do you know anyone that's looking at that?
We haven't looked at that. That's not to say that we won't look at the spectrum of need. And as I say, Councillor, we actually look across, firstly understanding what is the identified need and how can we deliver that. Often that requires us to partner with operators who have the specialist skill to provide the wraparound services, and particularly where there is a complex need. We have as a collective, as I mentioned, we're part of Home Foundation Group, which is an ecosystem of organisations, one of which is an organisation that we've recently established called Te Wāwata Kāinga, which it has the function of providing the landlord function, if you like, the property manager, and they do a huge amount of work actually to bring community and to work with agencies who have that specialist understanding of providing the care and support. We're doing that actually at Karamu, where we've got community housing, and we're going above and beyond just the function of a landlord, but actually engaging the community, signposting them to services, whether that's tackling worklessness, improving family cohesion, responding to a multitude of issues. So it's something that we can look at and consider.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Sam, please.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much for coming in. And we'll obviously get to the paper later on your one. You made an interesting comment, which I thought was really good, around buying the land off Christchurch NZ for the new Brighton development. And I guess the concern I've always had is that almost the more hands that are on something, the more it costs. And you've talked about affordable housing. Do you sort of see our role as someone that actually can enable development by releasing our excess land to organisations like you, commercially, but in a sense that will actually help drive sort of the problems you're trying to fix? Is that sort of the way we can help the most?
It's definitely one way. Land costs are absolutely a material consideration for us and can also impede our ability to deliver genuine affordable housing outcomes. I think there are huge opportunities for the council to play an enabling role, and I understand that Christchurch City Council, as well as more broadly Greater Christchurch, are thinking about that enabling role, which we're really encouraged and have been supportive of. I alluded that on Kadamu, we were able to deliver a mixture of tenures in, and that was largely due to the enabling mechanisms that you already have at play, one of which being the development contributions rebate, which we welcome. I feel that there is an opportunity for that to be extended to also enable not just the acute needs, i.e. social housing, but also affordable home ownership, whether that's progressive home ownership, because a lot of these products do require an equity hold-up that has presents a challenge in terms of development economics. Reduced land or free land or partnering to look at return on land a bit more patiently are definitely mechanisms that public organisations should be considering to drive those affordable housing outcomes.
Mary, it'd be good to get just a piece of work done around, that concept of we add more costs the more people are involved. And actually organisations like this seem to deliver.
One question from me.
So can we pick that up?
You touched on Homestar 7. Is that what the ones in Beresford Street are?
Yes, all of them will be Homestar 7, but we're actually exploring how we can achieve Homestar 8 as well. So we're pushing the boundaries, not because we're far ahead with the design. Some of them will just prove to be too costly to get to Homestar 8, but we think with some of this, with the middle terraces, we might be able to.
I was on Otatahi Housing Trust, and we had Homestar 7, I wouldn't say forced upon us by the government, and you could keep going till you're up to Homestar 74, and it'll get to the stage where you're burning all the money up. We looked at it and said, right, if we go Homestar 5 or Homestar 6, we can build more than we can at Homestar 7, because if you're trying to make them affordable for people who are desperate for somewhere to live in, that's what you need to do. So you don't want to get too carried away. Now, just one last question. Down at Beresford Street, there's 3 blocks you've got, and you were building on the middle one. Is that finished and you're working on one of the others now, or where are you at? Where is the middle block at?
Yeah, so we're edging closer to completion. So February next year is the completion date.
Yep.
We've actually commenced construction on our second stage. Cool. So I believe we're looking to complete the homes in June next year for the second stage, and we're also in the throes of finalising our funding for the third stage as well. So hope to commence construction in January.
And the first stage is all sold?
Yeah.
Good, excellent, good work. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, actually, it was just Mary following on from Sam's request. If we could get a piece of advice on some of the other options that were looked at for helping with that, not just the ticket clippy piece, but the other ones as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Okie doke. We've now got Annabelle here on behalf of Central City Business Association, who will present an open letter and petition regarding requests for more food truck licences. Yep.
Good morning, Mayor
Far away.
Phil, councillors and the Chief Executive. Thank you for giving me the floor. Today I speak on behalf of the Central City Business Association, which proudly represents 1,123 businesses that are at the heart of our Central City. Our Executive Board unanimously agreed on one thing. If the Arts Centre moves forward with its plans, as reported in the press, to allow 33 food trucks to operate on their site for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, we call for all long-term funding to the Arts Centres Trust to be halted. And we're not alone in this. Hospitality New Zealand, which represents 318 members, stand with us. And there's an apology from Jeremy today because he couldn't be here. Let me be clear, we're not here to kill anyone's buzz for a food truck at a weekend event. But this isn't a food festival. This is a permanent encroachment on the livelihood of businesses that have invested their blood, sweat and dollars in this city. And it sends a really dangerous message. Why pour your heart into a permanent business when you can pop up a caravan and cash in? Let's talk about fairness. Our members are already paying for the Arts Centre through their rates. We're subsidising them to the tune of $5.5 million over the next 10 years. It's kind of like asking a boxer to fight with one hand tied behind their back and then, for good measure, slap them in the face by a rolling fleet of food trucks that don't have to deal with the same financial constraints. Why invest in bricks and mortar if you can just grab some wheels and a parking permit? And while we're at it, let's not forget what the Arts Centre stands for. It's not drive-through takeaways. It's a cultural hub that reflects the history and the heart of Christchurch. Turning it into a food truck depot makes as much sense as hosting a rock concert in Tauranga. Some of our Central City businesses have just come through one of the harshest winters in recent memory. They're still recovering, and this really feels like a kick in the guts. This plan undermines the future of Christchurch as a place of permanence, stability, and investment. We're building a city, not a pop-up carnival. So today, we are asking you to take leadership. Christchurch deserves a level playing field. We cannot and we will not stand by while the business in the city's backbone are undermined.
Rightio. We've got some questions. Tyler, Tim, and then Vic.
Hi, Rich Peebles. Hi, everyone. I've been brought in a bit of a pinch hitter, so I'm not really prepared.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sure.
Just, in regards to what Annabelle said, I'm a big supporter of the Arts Centre. Love to see it successful, enjoy the weekend markets, but I too have the concerns about the number of food trucks and this permanent nature of them. We always assumed that food trucks were a temporary activity until the CBD was rebuilt. I've got a question about if you allow that. Is this best for the CBD? It may be best for the Arts Centre, but I'm not sure it's best for all of Christchurch, and that's just a question everyone needs to ask. It certainly undermines investment in the CBD. A lot of the existing businesses, the cost, the rates burden is quite high and getting higher by the year. If we knew that we could have mobile food trucks and mobile retail shops on the sites in the CBD, I wonder if we would have built in the first place. I didn't understand that it was actually an option. So we've got several sites in the city that we're looking at the moment, and if it is an option to get 30 retail caravans down there rather than actually go through the resource and building consent process, that's probably an option. And it's a lot cheaper for the operators without the rates burden, and also the burdens with regards to consenting, the food compliance, the extraction, the trade waste, the grease traps. It's a hellishly cheaper model, and if that's what we want, and look, I don't even know if it is a permitted activity in the CBD, but if the Arts Centre can get 33, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week food trucks, I've got a few sites I'd like to put a few mobile shops on. Anyway, the question I think everyone needs to ask themselves is, and I don't know what you can actually do about it. I don't know what the rules actually say in the district plan, but the question is what's best for the city. Mm-hmm. It's not just the Arts Centre, and as I said, I'm a big supporter of heritage and the Arts Centre, but what is best for the city? And allowing a full permanent 33 trucks, that's a massive offering. You know, when you think about it, it's bigger than the terrace combined. So we have to think seriously about what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear. Tyler, please.
Kia ora, Annabelle, Richard and Paul. Good to see us. Excuse me. I've got a question and wondering if there is any middle ground that you're welcoming in terms of length of stay, how many days that the caravans may want to prop up in the Arts Centre.
Well, there is for me. I mean, I think the weekend market and food trucks was always there, and I don't think, and you know, special events even you can have more trucks, but you know, 33 food trucks. You know, a creative market, it's a great idea, isn't it? That's what we want, and there needs to be food offerings, so weekend market's big supporter. Anyone?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Richard, but probably not 33, because like he said, like that's more than that's in the terrace.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you. I think like Wanaka has about like 11 in theirs, and traditionally they've always had food trucks, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't 33. Have you talked to them? Have you approached them, Annabelle, or to say, you know?
This was a quick piece. I was away until last week, so I got quite a few angry messages from a number of our businesses. Yep. So I've had to obviously react to our members.
Understandably,
and
yeah.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah. And I guess for us, as we have a close relationship now with the Arts Centre, did we have a heads up at all that this was in the wings? If you could, we could find that out from staff at some stage. We don't, not now, but I mean at some stage. Thank you.
Victoria, and then Andre.
I'm okay, thank you. Tyler's asked the question.
Judy? Andre?
Yeah, it was a very similar question as well. But they've got food trucks there every day of the week currently. I'm not sure if you know how many. I don't. Maybe 5, maybe 6, something along those lines.
Not 33.
No, but there's maybe 5 or 6 currently. But if they were a similar question, if they were looking to expand that to say 10 or 15, do you think you'd still be here today?
Well, we'd have to get feedback from our members.
Sure.
Cause,
understood.
Yeah.
Yes.
I question the permanence. You know, I always thought food trucks were a temporary thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I would just question.
Yeah.
You know, a weekend market, that's not permanent. But if you're talking 7 days a week, permanent, 10 food trucks, it's a different question.
Understood.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the Arts Centre is like the historic hub of the city. So we actually don't want to turn it into drive-through takeaways.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got 2 more we get going. Jake, then Sam.
Do you guys have an understanding of what the capacity difference may be between, say, a restaurant or a set-up permanent space versus the truck? Yeah, because I think 33, and I think, well, geez, that's, as you say, bigger than Riverside or bigger than Little High. And then I think, well, but they must surely be serving a lot less food through the truck. So I just want to get an understanding of the scale.
Well, as we've learned at Riverside and probably Little High, the size of the kitchen doesn't really matter. It's how efficient that kitchen is. So just say Little High is 8 offerings.
Right.
So, you're talking 33, and you know how many seats and how many people go to Little High. With 2,000 people a day, you can, out of a food truck, if you're efficient, you can serve a lot of people. But, it's the permanent nature, Jake, rather than how successful they are, I guess, is the issue. And it's the unfair playing field versus, and the undermining of the investment.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Sam?
Yeah, hey, thank you for coming in, and I must admit it was a bit of a shock to me to read somehow the Arts Centre. I don't know how publicly they made it known that they were doing that, but it's not the first time. In terms of the petition that you've put in there, looking through the names, it looks, am I right in saying 5% are tenants?
The majority are tenants.
There's only a couple of names I sort of recognise on there. Can you just talk about the impact this would have on them and maybe Richard, even from Riverside, for example, you know, the challenges that businesses still have. I mean, the economy's still in a pretty bad space.
Like a lot of
and
people
the
have
costs they incur.
put their life on the line to actually benefit the city. You know, people, they've remortgaged their houses, taken out big loans. So they are putting their best foot forward to make the city a better place. And so some of them who've come to me were just absolutely gutted when they heard that, because obviously interest rates are not particularly low, rates are not particularly low, cost of business is at an all-time high.
Sam, a lot of our tenants came from food trucks originally, or from the container mall, you know, and it, you know, they came in and they've invested in, you know, into a store, into a shop front, and spent the money, got the consenting, and it's a hell of a lot more expensive to have a bricks and mortar store than it is to have a truck. You know, and there's probably some of them will go, well, I'd prefer to have a food truck rather. And but we could ask ourselves, what do we want as a city? Do we want to encourage that type of activity in new developments? Because it's a lot easier, and if that's permitted activity, yes, people will do it, and it won't just be food trucks; it'll be retail shops.
It
Could be
changes the
offices.
fabric of the city.
Where's the limit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's certainly not fair on the people who have invested a shed load of money being building owners and the businesses in them. So I totally understand, see where you're coming from. And lastly, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for raising this. I guess my thoughts are around why the Arts Centre has done this. I would assume that they have a lack of funding and are looking to I guess, improve that situation. And I guess I applaud the fact that they're thinking, even though it's perhaps not exactly what you want. Other than paying rates, do your members have any relationship that could, with the Arts Centre, that maybe you could work together on some projects? Is there any thoughts around that?
We would welcome working together with the Arts Centre.
Yeah. Okay. I think you should. I think that'd be great, because they're obviously needing the type of help that you have, the skills that you have.
And being that we're about 15 minutes over, Sarah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you so much for coming in. Good on you. Okie doke. So I'm going to council and committee minutes. I'm going to move, and these items are number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And the seconder is Pauline. So I'll put that the council minutes. I'll put that, all those in favour? Against? Thank you, that's carried. So now we move on to monthly reports from the com boards. And first up is, thanks Peninsula. Very good to see you again.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, e te whānau. Let's see if I can make up some time for you this morning. All right, so here's the latest on what's been happening in Banks Peninsula.
So now I say thank you for your presentation.
So firstly, we have decisions made under delegation. Thank you. We received minutes from 6 of our Hero Reserve committees and the Acro Museum Advisory Committee. Also, we're proud to support local initiatives through discretionary response funding. Here's just a few. A mobile emergency kit for the Cass Bay Emergency Hub. Bark renewal in the playground for soft landings at the Little River Play Centre, and a much anticipated workshop fit out for the Little River Railway goods shed, which is aiming to be a men's shed, as well as blinds for the Associated Museum. Next, I'd like to highlight the public forums that we've had. We heard from inspiring young Abby Laird, who received youth development funding from the board. She excelled at the Future Problem Solving International Conference in America, and she's now sharing her knowledge locally. We look forward to seeing how she uses her skills in the community in the future. Cass Bay Residents Association shared their last Summer with Your Neighbours event, and we heard about various activities undertaken with the Cass Bay Reserve Committee and volunteers with their planting and weeding, trap making, and the setup of their emergency hub, and the beautiful living memorial at Pony Point Reserve in remembrance of those lost during the mosque terror attacks. And we were intrigued to hear about the Know Your Place group exhibition at Ray Gallery in November, featuring amazing audio recordings of ocean sounds combined into a symphony. These works are in response to research and observations of the local environment. FENZ showed us an informative presentation to help the community prepare for the upcoming fire season. Did you know that fire can burn uphill 6 times faster than on the flat? That's something that I learned from it anyway. Fire safety is crucial for Banks Peninsula communities in the dry and windy conditions. Our Reserve Committees and Parks team plan strategically with fire breaks and low flammability plants in high-risk areas. There's many ways that our community can prepare, and one of the ways is to ensure that you have a 4 metre by 4 metre clearance for fire trucks and driveways. There's so much more, but they have a great website for more information. Community focus. Recently, we audited community managed facilities across Banks Peninsula, identifying the most pressing needs for each of them, and then we allocated better off funding to keep these assets operational. For example, the Port Levy Hall was built in 1870, and it's the oldest council community facility. The Residents Association has had events coordinators a role there in place, and efforts of this person have contributed to considerable activation of the facility. The hall's intimate interior space supports social gatherings with barleaners, displays of historic memorabilia, and a book exchange library. Funding to improve the kitchen and toilet block will make the facility fit for use and helping to draw the community of the Bay together for years to come. This is one of the many advantages that the Better Off funding has provided for the listed facilities, as you can see here. Each has an equally compelling and interesting story, and we are so happy to be able to help these communities continue to grow their local connections. A connected community is a healthy community. These facilities are precious taonga for our remote communities, providing gathering spaces, celebration venues, and safe havens. We appreciate our community's hard work and thank the Council for the Better Off funding opportunities. Thank you.
Great. I'm very pleased you brought that up about Better Off funding. What I'd like to see going forward is, because it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 500 grand over, oh, you guys got a bit less.
That would be great, yes. Was it 500?
But what you've done with the money you've got, you guys are at the cutting edge of what's needed, and I would like to see, I know everyone, the ComBoards get funding from council, but this was a one-off thing. I'd like to try and emulate that going forward, maybe not to the same amount, but because you guys know what's needed,
Yeah.
and you can cut it off so you don't have to do reports, apply to funding grants, all that sort of thing. You're Johnny on the spot and you can spend it. So thank you so much for what you've done here. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
So I'd like to one day have that happening. Tyrone.
Thank you for your kind words, Your Worship.
Except your area,
because it was actually a very good process, and it's got some really, really good outcomes. But I just quickly on the Allendale Hall, I note the board gave $21,000 towards the reopening of the Allendale Hall. Now I understand that was had to be closed after a botched repair job, so the community can't really use it. It has got an amazing value to the community and to wider Christchurch. How much do we have a sense of how much more it's going to cost to get it reopened?
I don't know off the top of my head, maybe staff know, but I just know it's a signal from the community board to say that we support that the hall gets reopened. Yeah, do you know?
Yeah, I could just add that staff are working on that at the moment because of the long-term plan resolution that was passed. So there's some really good work going on with staff and the community association and Governors Bay who manage that. So we can provide some more details.
No, cool. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much.
To get that open.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good
Thanks,
to see you. Okay, Horswell Hornby Rickerton, please.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present the monthly report of the Waipuna Holswell Hornby Rickerton Community Board. Now, it has been a bit light on the agenda at our last meeting, but we have been very busy going around the community with the presentation of Community and Youth Service Awards. But first off, decisions made under delegation. So we only had one item we had to decide on, and that was the discretionary response fund for the South Hornby School. Now, the community was, in this particular application, the community was concerned about privacy issues with a 2-story residential development built right next to the swimming pool, the school swimming pool. So the amount granted of $7,000 was to help them purchase a couple of umbrellas or sails to help address the privacy issues. Then we had the Waipuna the Community Board area report was accepted, and we had funding allocations also, 8 individual youth development funds and 2 group allocations granted. And the Off the Ground Fund, Rachel Smith, towards the UC Skatebirds Club Pride skate event. And then the Summer with Your Neighbors. This is about bringing people closer together and celebrating the unique and diverse mix of each neighborhood. So we have had 18 allocations for this one. Next is the Community Service Awards. These are given in recognition of significant voluntary service. They are a way of thanking and honoring volunteers who demonstrate dedication and passion, inspiring others to make service a central part of their lives. Community Service Awards have been presented to Mr. Mark Duff for the Hornby Greater area, Angela Swinney for Salvation Army, Helen Kropp and Paula Robinson for Citizens Advice Bureau, and a posthumous award to Jill Rosalind Simmons of Plunkett. Youth Service Awards have been presented to Sinead Coleman of Holswell, Serena Morgan Quinn McConnell of Riccarton, and then a few more are coming for the September and November, and we'll be reporting about that. Now, in terms of the Community Service Awards, the board in previous years were just holding one award ceremony every year. This year, we have been trialing going out to the community. So it has been very successful and well received by the community that the community board members are coming out to them and presenting the awards. So that has been very well received. Now, Holswell is great news. It now has its own community patrol. And with all the growth happening in Holswell, it is about time that we have our own community patrol. Now, since the launch last August, there are now about 20 volunteers, fully trained patrollers. The Holswell patrol car is now out and about every Friday and Saturday nights, and we're hoping to add Thursday nights soon. They're still open for more volunteers. The more the better, and the more eyes and ears for the police. Next is a Hornby Youth Hangout. The building in Waikola Avenue has had a spruce up with a new roof and signage. The hangout is run by Community Development Network Trust. It operates 3 days a week for young people in years 7 to 13, and it is a venue where young people can go after school, hang out with the other young people, and connect with youth workers. The Huritini Student Council met to plan their Pataka Food Pantry project. Now, this is an ongoing project for the Huritini Student Council, and they're developing their plans for a food pantry to be installed at each of their schools. And that's all from the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen Bailey. Thank you. Rightio, we've got Spraden Cashmere Heathcote, please. Gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor, thanks councillors for having us back. Tēnā koutou katoa. So we'll get right into it today. Actually, Kia, you're going to kick us off, weren't you, with CRAF?
Yeah, so we've been spending some of the government's, the Regeneration Acceleration Facility money. So we've got a package of works, some of which is currently out for consultation, some of which we were able to sign off at our last meeting. So that was improvements on Walton Road and Hastings Street East to help improve safety for kids getting to Walton School. and work on Beckenham Street to help improve safety for kids getting to St Peter's School. One of the cool things about this work is that in the Beckenham Street, we were able to trial it using Innovating Streets processes. So that was cool to kind of go through that process iteration, see what worked, and then put it in concrete finally. And yes, there will be some raised platforms here to make sure that people are driving at appropriate speeds around schools.
Thanks, Keir. Yep, and I think just to sort of add to that, around the conversation that was had earlier in the chamber, we had all but unanimous support really for these kind of improvements in our communities. And as Councillor Scandrett suggested, would love to understand if there is, I guess the other side of the coin, which at the moment seems to be quite theoretical to us, as opposed to the real safety improvements we're seeing in the community. Actually, that photo there is the children from St Peter's School coming to speak to the board in support of the changes that we were making. We had a few other issues of advocacy, age-friendly. Our board has a sort of a focus group that's focused on issues for elderly people in our community. And actually, they've identified that for our people in our community, and I'm sure it's similar for communities across the city, that the hospital accessibility and shelter is a real big issue. Obviously, that's not a council issue. But we as a board will be advocating on their behalf to the relevant central government authorities about improvements. Obviously, it's a bit of a hot button topic nationally, but we need to be speaking up for the elderly in our community as well. And we request that the council, obviously it's a citywide issue, we request the council join us in that advocacy and expressing support for improved services at the Christchurch Hospital. We've also had a hui with corrections in our community around the process for releasing offenders back into the community and what kind of supports are in place, and that was really, really helpful following a traumatic incident that happened several years ago now in Addington, which I think was really good to see central government frontline staff turning up and really fronting for the community. So I just want to express appreciation really to corrections for that. We're also exploring options to better connect with young people, and we're going to be holding a hui with groups of young people and sort of organisations in our community that work with young people later in the year to kind of see how that could look.
And we were really keen to, obviously, Councillor Harrison Hunt, with the work that you do in the youth portfolio, loop that into. So we wanted to bring that up here to bring.
We'll invite you along if you're keen to come. Cool. So the main thing on our board's agenda last meeting was the looking at a variation on the lease for the Christchurch Yacht Club. They're proposing to make some changes to their site, and there's a whole lot of hoops they've got to jump through. So it's a long road ahead of them, but the first hoop is really getting landlord approval. So they just the last session we had was just really about information sharing, and we've got some pictures up on the screen there of what they've sort of got in mind. It's mainly around addressing some existing health and safety issues and improving the use of the site, so they're actually able to use the area more effectively and efficiently and get out of the yacht club car park for some of their trainings. We know that it's going to be an issue of great interest to the community. And we also just wanted to put a photo up here of the Matua Olympics, which were held at Pioneer Stadium on the 28th of September. It promotes physical activity among older Pacific residents 65 years plus, and it was a really fun team environment. I know that our board staff put a huge amount of work into this, and it sounds like it was an awesome success. I was unable to make it, but you can see some of our elected members up there were able to be present. So that was awesome.
That's good.
Cool. Anything else you want to add to that, Kia?
Okay, Tyler?
Oh, actually, one thing I will say, just I guess a bit of a flag in advance of next month's agenda is we're intending to come back to talk to council in depth about the Apollo site. So this is the site of the former Addington Stadium, and I guess our sort of vision or how the process could work around what happens next there. So we'll be coming back next month to talk about that a lot more.
Yeah, mate. Tyler, please.
Yeah, kia ora, guys. Thanks so much for that. I was actually intending to do a tour around the community boards prior to the annual plan to talk about what youth in your areas would like, and also the multicultural portfolio. But the next one is around the yacht club, and I'm wondering, what I'm noticing actually a lot is there's a lot of young people bombing off that wharf. Is there any provisions to be able to continue to allow that in the new design?
So the information we got from the yacht club was that they wouldn't be restricting access to that site any any further based on the changes they're making. Yeah.
Although I think the yacht club, like, they have concerns just about making sure that people are using that facility. It's safe.
Safely.
So I guess there's probably a bit of work to do there. That
It will also change the shape of the site, and that does tend to change usage passively as well. Just the way it looks and feels, but they're not going to be restricting access. Yeah,
but no diving board.
We don't need one. You just need a rocket or a wharf.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good to see you again. Okay, Fendleton, Waimari, Harewood, please.
I don't think we have any presenters.
No, sorry. The place is running so well they don't need to come and tell us what's going on. Probably, okay. Papua New Inner Central, please.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to present today, and apologies from Simon, he was unable to make it along today. As usual, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on what's happened in our board area over the past month. You'll see there are decisions made under delegations, which included some new road names for a couple of new developments, a new lease for the Mirabelle Papanui Cricket Club, and discretionary response funding to the Richmond Community Garden Trust for the Revolution Cafe, and to Cotswold Ave Kindy towards outdoor play equipment. The highlight of our September meeting was a deputation from representatives of the Christchurch Polish community. You may remember about a year ago that they came here into Chamber and presented a petition to you asking for a park or reserve in the city to be named after the 733 Polish orphans who arrived in New Zealand in 1944. With the 80th anniversary of the children's arrival this year, the representatives thought it timely to ensure the city has a special tribute to these children. The children arrived on 1st of November 1944 upon invitation of the Prime Minister and stayed at an army camp at Pahiatua called Little Poland. Most eventually ended up in Christchurch, Auckland and Wellington, with a few hundred of their descendants now living in Christchurch and Canterbury. Thanks to some fantastic work by our council staff, we were able to approve the naming of the reserve at 2 Burkitt Street in the Oakbridge subdivision in Marshland, Little Poland Park. This area has an existing connection to Poland, as a number of Polish immigrants arrived in the area in the 1870s and put down roots there, and this is reflected in a number of the street names in that subdivision. It was a real honour to hear the story of the orphans as told by these descendants, and to meet 2 of the original orphans who arrived on that ship in 1944 and are still going strong today. Here are some photos of a planting day held by the Sticks Living Laboratory Trust at Redwood Springs. There was a good turnout from the local community to add to the plantings along the bank of the Pūhara Kekenui Styx River. In August, we used our regular community liaison hui to engage with local groups on the Play Spaces Network plan. Staff ran an engaging workshop where we heard some really valuable feedback and ideas from those present, and we look forward to seeing the next step in this engagement process. We've continued presenting our community service awards out in the community over the past month. Here you can see Linda Cowan from Age Concern, Lisbeth Van Broeksham from the Swans Road Parklet, and Nikita Riches from Recreate New Zealand receiving their well-deserved awards. And here are a few more recipients. We acknowledged the long service and dedication of a number of the Christchurch Hospital volunteers and visited an amazing local group called From One Mother to Another, who make special care packs for caregivers with children in hospital. They had 4 volunteers receiving awards, including the 3 young Annecy brothers who give their time to help put packs together. We've talked to you before about the community activation project happening in Petrie Park in Richmond, and you'll see here the murals for the fences around the park are coming along really well. The paintings are of local dogs who enjoy the park, and a really good number of the local community came out, both young and old, came out to help paint and also to meet the dogs that are in the paintings. It was great to see a number of local young people come together recently for Te Wero, the Challenge. This is a citywide scavenger hunt event where teams compete in a series of challenges to test their knowledge, creativity and physical abilities. Thanks to the Papanui Youth Development Trust and Te Ora Hou for once again teaming up with our local community governance team to put on another successful event for our young people. And that's us. Thanks.
Brilliant. Kelly, please.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. Thanks for acknowledging the Polish community in Preston's. We have Polish settlers present, and I know that the Polish community are very supportive of the Marshland Hall Trust attempt to build a community centre in the area. Did they ask for anything else at all, or any other projects that you're aware of on the horizon?
No, they were just focused on that park. They were either going to put a plaque in and a bench with a memorial to those children. But yeah, they came to us just focused on that one project.
Yeah, okay. Oh, good. Thank you.
Good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okie doke. And lastly, Coastal Bearwood Linwood, please. Hey, Paul.
Atamari e te kurumatua me ngā kai konihira.
Chris.
Hi, Chris. So first we'll start as usual with some highlights from the board area. The Alston Development Project hosted their first whānau festival, a free community event. Recently the festival enjoyed a fantastic turnout with whānau engaging in various activities throughout the day. I was also privileged to attend their AGM recently, along with Deputy Chair Jackie Simons. The Wilson Development Project Manager Eddie Hayes and the Wilson Development Project do fantastic work and are real assets to Wilston. And Kāwai Rangatahi hosted an outdoor movie at Linwood Park by Te Pou Toitoi on Friday the 20th of September. Again, working in collaboration with YCD, they showed Shrek and brought close to 250 people with a great mix of rangatahi and whānau attending the free event. We really appreciate the work of Kāwai Rangatahi and YCD in this area, and we're also really excited about having Youth Town in Woolston Village. These kinds of organisations are critical to providing connection and belonging for rangatahi in the Linwood Ward, which is an investment in our future as a community. And next, there was a New Brighton clean-up organised by the New Brighton Residents Association. Around 15 volunteers went along to help with the clean-up day on Sunday the 22nd of September. The group collected 17 bags of rubbish by the end of the day. As you'll be aware, an ongoing challenge with having so many vacant sites is that some people think it's a great place to dump their rubbish. So progress on the vacant land differential rate is essential to regenerating this area. Portlink, which that has some happenstance around it. Unfortunately, the owner, who was in here just recently, and Occupy have successfully objected to the resource consent conditions around noise. So noise conditions have been removed, but they've offered up they have to have a noise management plan, and until the Environment Court makes a declaration, shipping containers are not considered buildings for the purposes of the district plan. I find it extraordinary that the owner was here just now asking you to prevent small businesses from running food trucks in the city and said, with no sense of irony, I don't know what the rules are in the district plan, but it's about what's best for the city. So when it comes to CBD businesses, it's about what's best for the city, and when it comes for Woolston, it's okay because it's in the district plan. I'm speechless. Never mind the actual people who live in Woolston. Where's the limit, as they said indeed. So if he wants a less permissive district plan, then he should support the forthcoming plan change for the residential industrial fringe. Finally, on a more positive note, on the 26th of September, the board received a workshop on the Raranga Te Rāwhiti weaving a strategic plan and map. So this is in response to the wastewater treatment plant report. This is a practical program for reconfiguring how the council as a whole, as an institution, works with the East. The board plan to formally receive this at our next meeting. So thank you to the community governance staff led by Chris, the SOAN network and the CEO, Mary Richardson, for their work on this and their support, and to all the board members and councillors for their positivity. The primary value of Raranga Te Rāwhiti is kotahitanga. We are all in this together. So the community, the council, the community board, the council staff, local government is something that we do together. So we're very excited about this and appreciate your support. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Kelly, then Tim.
Thanks, Paul. Just in terms of Portlink, two quick questions really. One, are they to your mind, obeying their consent in regards to when they start work, the noise that they're creating when they finish their work?
There have been multiple breaches of the existing conditions, but they are now now they've set a resource consent in place. So residents don't think that they are, but I don't currently have any information to suggest that they're, corroborated to suggest they're breaching what is now the consent conditions.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, is this a good thing for the city to have such a close interface between the commercial and the residential?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I just want to thank you for your advocacy for your community over the Portlink and pointing out the irony or hypocrisy, whichever you want to look at it today. So thank you.
Good.
Done. Yanni, please. Are you there, mate? Hello. Go, Yanni.
Oh, thank you. Just to confirm that they had actually stacked the containers in the landscaped area, which was against where they were permitted to be. So the enforcement staff had to go out again, monitor it, and take additional compliance measures in regards to it. So, yeah, I mean, the residents are pretty frustrated around the whole situation there, and staff have advised that there is a gap in our district plan when it comes to there's a special auditory characteristics, which is effectively the metal on metal does not actually generate the type of noise that they can measure very easily. So although it's incredibly disruptive and has a really big negative impact on the community, our district plan is silent on some of the aspects that enable this sort of thing to occur, which is why we need to get that plan change in place as soon as possible.
Yep.
And the frustration from the
Absolutely
community
agree.
is that if council had done the plan change when we were first asked for it 5 years ago, we may have had stricter controls that would have prevented the situation from getting worse, or from at least being able to proceed as it is. But because we've taken so long, it's very hard retrospectively to change what gets done once something has consent.
And at the end of the day, it's like it doesn't matter. It's like, don't do this in the central city, but we do what we want in Woolston, and that's the come away from here today just shaking my head.
Thank you very much, gents.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you to our com boards. I will now move it, and Pauline is going to second it for the monthly reports. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Now we'll do one more, and then we'll have a 15-minute break. The next one is actually just a bit of housekeeping for the annual budget update for Canterbury Joint Waste Committee. Yep. I've got a mover and seconder. All those in favour? A question. The difference is something was written at $112,000 when it should have been 120. That is the wee bit we're changing.
No, it's a question for the members of the committee, just on the Waste Joint Committee. So the committee makes recommendations on how to spend the money, those kind of things. But there's a tension here, because the money comes from the levies, and Cape Valley and that whole system makes money from people putting waste in. There's very little disincentive for more waste to go in, because that's where the money stream comes from, and because they're operated as a company, they have to do things in the best interests of the company, which is actually to make money and those kind of things. And so I'm just wondering whether the committee's done any work in thinking about how you create incentives to lower the revenue stream, if you like, because it's only by lowering the amount of waste in that you lower the revenue stream. But you don't want to lower the revenue stream, so you actually want more waste. And we don't want waste, because the whole point is waste reduction. There's that tension. So I'm just wondering if the committee's
Can we just
turned its mind to that.
Can we clarify though? Is this within the scope of the paper?
outside the scope of this report, but we could actually ask the committee outside this to come back
Well,
with
it's to
some
do with their
advice
income and revenue and the budgets
rather
and
than
things.
today.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If you just have a look at that, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
We'll ask.
Okay. Where was I? Was I putting it? Yes. Yeah. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That's carried. Right. We'll have 15 minutes, and we will be back at Back, everyone. We are now on item 14, the hearings panel report on Gloucester Street. Sarah was the chairperson of the hearings panel and she is presenting her report.
Tēnā koutou katoa miki nui, kia koutou. So this is the Gloucester Street hearings panel report. So we had a panel that was made up of me and Councillor Mark Peters, who's unable to be here today, and Community Board Chair Emma Norris, who's Community Board Chair for the area. So back as far as 2012, with the Central City Recovery Plan and the Arts Precinct, there were upgrades indicated that would be needed for this particular stretch of street. So it wasn't a particularly new project when it first came to us. And I remember seeing things several years ago with proposals for upgrades here. So the panel was tasked with assessing the current design and the consultation feedback and making a recommendation on the future of this trial. We are unanimously recommending that the Gloucester Street layout is retained permanently, but with some changes to the original design to address community feedback. What we were not asked to do is to look back at the early parts of the process or any of those things or costings, but just for the future. The panel met twice in August and we undertook one site visit so we could really get a handle on the feedback that the community were giving. A lot of that was around visibility and those kind of things, so we wanted to see that in person. We received 251 formal submissions, with the majority of submitters supporting keeping the trial aspects in place, and we heard from just 8. Staff were asked multiple questions throughout the process, which informed the panel's recommendation, and a copy of these is there for all of you. The consultation began, early engagement began in September 22, with discussions held between businesses and organisations ahead of the trial taking place. And the official trial began on the 11th of December and ended on the 19th of February. Part of the trial criteria from Waka Kotahi was to make sure that we trialled things like closing the street off for events and various other activations. And during the trial period, we had the Morning People Rave, and I don't know if anyone else went to that, but it was a lot of fun. And the More FM Kinky Boots drag race, which sounded like fun, but I couldn't make. We have recommended changes to the original staff recommendation based on that community feedback. And there were things that we observed, so that the western entrance of the road, the Court Theatre end, didn't make it obvious for drivers entering Gloucester Street. It was a shared zone. So signage indicating that transition was requested. Street furniture was collecting litter and those kind of things and making the place look untidy, so additional street cleaning. A lack of connection between the stage and the seating, and so we've actually suggested that the stage be moved. And just at our Court Theatre visit the other day, we became aware that actually that site that's being used for the staging area between Court Theatre and the Theatre Royal might be a good place for that to go to, which is adjacent to it right now. And submitters had pointed out that the planter boxes in front of the press building limited visibility for accessing those. So we've recommended that they get swapped over, because the one on the other side of the road had no hedge and was a much lower with better visibility. There's also additional car parking going in outside Court Theatre, including a mobility park and time-limited parking. There were a lot of requests from people who wanted to be able to pick up kids or books and things from Tūranga and needed more than the sort of couple of minutes that were available with the one park outside Tūranga currently. So there's, I think, 4 10-minute parks there. Court Theatre were also really supportive of the project and of the limited time parking outside. Makes it really useful during the day for people picking up tickets or booking tickets for shows. But that would only be during the daytime, so it would provide some space later. People were concerned about Tūranga parking. There is some 5-minute parking on the square side, but it's not particularly visible and it's often used for hotel parking. And so we've asked for some work to be done there as well to make people aware that they can park there for 5 minutes and pick up books. And staff are here to address any specific technical questions, but apart from that, we're recommending that it stays with those changes.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, so have we got any questions? We haven't got any questions. Samuel?
probably for the finance. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Hey, I'm just trying to understand. So the cost of the recommended option, the 36 grand annually above BAU, it mentioned in there around that it was based on doing the road markings every 5 years. But in the response we got this morning, it says we're doing them every 2 to 3 years. Unless I've got that wrong. It's on my phone, so I'm just trying to understand whether the cost is what the actual cost is.
I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly how long we said. It's definitely an annualised cost for an occasional refresh. Yes.
Yeah. So it says so it does say in there the 5 years for the 36 grand, but it says in the one if we were to go down the other path,
yeah,
that we could leave them on there and they'd wear out in 3 years.
Well, yes. I mean, it's rough and it depends on the number of vehicles that go down there. I'm sorry, I probably slightly messed up, but generally, that kind of road marking, you normally expect to have an asset life of about 3 years, but given the road volumes down there, it probably would last a little bit longer.
Okay. And the only other one, two things. The morning rave, which was the 20 grand, and I don't know if there's, the comms. How many people went to that?
I think it was maxed out at 1,000 and we sold out.
Right. Okay. And then just the last one is just around the cost to remove the 173 plus the 10 grand of contingency. Can someone just talk me through the procurement process? Do we get multiple quotes on something like that? It just seems high.
At the moment, we haven't. So we've used the maintenance contractor for the area to do the work, right. And they've given us that lump sum price. There may be options to look at it as we gave you some information this morning about potential options to remove the physical features, and the other thing we've been looking at is some kind of microsurfacing treatment, which in reality would probably be cost neutral, but it would extend the asset life as well. So
cool. Thank you.
there are options in that space.
Thanks.
Jake?
The 240 of remaining budget, that can be used to obviously offset the ongoing costs. What happens to that money if we were to remove the project? The 240 remaining money from the 1.4 total?
Yeah. I mean, that stays against the project. I suspect if there was money left over, it would be reallocated across the transport programme.
Right, okay.
Victoria?
Thank you. My first question is a supplementary then to Jake's. If it doesn't proceed today and we choose to remove it, can that 240 be allocated for the removal costs?
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's what it's there for, yeah.
Okay. Can I just get some clarity then on the relocation of the stage and the seating? Hearing what Councillor Templeton said, looking at another space there by the Court Theatre, if we can't relocate it in the Gloucester Street precinct, is the recommendation that it just goes somewhere else in the city and doesn't form part of Gloucester Street?
We were hoping that it would go nearby, so there are a couple of options. There is a small pocket park adjacent to it currently. That's private land, but it's a council kind of pocket park, and there's the potential for it to go there. There's now the new site that we own on Gloucester Street. Once Court Theatre staging area is no longer needed, that's going to be probably done up as a nice wee park that would be suitable for it. It might go somewhere else. The thing is, the original plan had the stage and the seating much closer to each other, and then there was a request for that to be moved further back, and so there's a bit of a disconnect and it's not well used.
Okay, and so staying on the issue with the stage, other than the council-initiated events on that stage and the events on the street that were initiated by council, has anyone else used it as a performance space or the street for other public purposes?
We had a couple of requests, but we didn't monitor it the whole time. So I know in my inbox I talked to a couple of different performers that used it or at least wanted to use it. But we don't have a definitive on that.
Okay.
The street furniture was used even while we did our site visit. So there were people who sort of popped out of the library, a dad with a couple of kids who.
It's mainly the stage It's mainly the
Yeah,
stage I was concerned about. I
Yeah.
wanted to know that. I've also got a question in relation to, must have been question 20 of councillors' requests on page 161, where it talks about the engagement with FENS and St John. And I just note in the staff comments that, can I just bear with me, I want to find it so I can make sure I've got it correct. Here we go. Emails and a video call with FENS about the project. The final remarks were they're okay with the proposal for the layout at the stage, but if it was a more permanent solution, then they would expect there to be further discussions about that. So now that we've got the proposal for this to be permanent, have there been any other further discussions with FENS?
No. So if it's to stay in, we can give them an update. But the look of the street hasn't changed. That was more in relation to originally this project was a trial before a different permanent solution, including no curb and channel. So when we talk about a permanent solution, that's what it was referring.
Yeah, with respect, I think that's a bit of license there, because anyone who's commented on this has commented on this as a temporary trial. But I think the implication there is that they would be further consulted if it was to be made permanent.
That's not how it was intended, but yes, we can look back into with them.
Sorry, that wasn't a question. I was just sorry, a bit of license there, Mr. Mayor. Apologies to everybody.
Maybe
I
a
had
bit of debate, was it?
I've got another question then about number 25. I'm having a bit of difficulty reconciling the staff advice in relation to the review in 6 months. In the first paragraph there of the staff's comments, you say that you support the recommended approach, but then in the next part of that box, you say everything to suggest that it's probably not a good idea and that it's of limited value. So I'm really struggling to understand whether you support a review or not.
We're very happy for there to be a review. The point is we won't have any empirical data to support that. In the monitoring and evaluation report measured a whole set of metrics about how the street was being used, and that will not continue. I mean, that's been quite an expensive process. So to carry that on for another 6 months.
It does beg the question of whether there's any point of the review if there's not going to be any evaluation or monitoring or engagement over it. So what really is the point of it?
We would still have feedback from our traffic engineers, and members of the public would still send in hybris tickets, and you as elected members would still be able to use the street and give feedback on your feelings about it.
And can you confirm then that even if they do give feedback and they want some changes, that there's actually no money on budget, there's no money for consultation or anything like that at this stage?
At this stage, no, there isn't.
Thanks. And then the other one is just resolution number 8. I'm just querying about that being included when staff have said that it's outside the scope of this project.
That can be looked at by our area engineers, so it will be done outside the project anyway.
Thank you.
Yanni, hello.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I was interested, I think I read somewhere that we didn't monitor the traffic impact of the surrounding streets. Is that true?
We did, yeah. The monitoring and evaluation report has data from surrounding streets, yeah.
And so did we see an increase in traffic on surrounding streets? And if so, to what extent, particularly Armour Street?
No, so originally we reported that there'd been a 40% increase on Armour Street. That was incorrect. We spoke to the hearings panel about that issue. There's actually a very slight drop in the number of vehicles on Armour Street, but it's not particularly significant. So overall, it doesn't appear to have made much difference to the surrounding streets.
Yeah. The second question is, we used to have a project in the LTP. Can you just remind us how much that project was for the permanent solution?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think it was in the region of 2.5 million.
Right. And my understanding was, as a condition for having got the Streets for People funding, we had to have a permanent project on the budget.
which at the time we did. We did. So that was removed during the last
At that
LTP
point-
period.
Right. And so if we continue with this project as it is, or if we remove it, there was previously consideration that NZTA might not give us the full funding that we've spent on it. Has there been any update to that advice that we had previously around what the likely cost is to the ratepayer if we go with whichever option in terms of NZTA's funding?
NZTA won't fund anything from this point onwards. From the costs from the 1st of July onwards are entirely at council's cost. I don't believe funding before that is at risk.
Sorry, just to be really clear then. So does that mean that the additional 240k that's remaining in the project budget is coming from ratepayer, not Waka Kotahi?
Yes, it is, yeah. And that had a zero assumption in the LTP as well.
Sorry, that had a zero assumption.
A zero assumption of subsidy when we did the LTP. So it's always been assumed to be 100% ratepayer funded.
So if we went and said that we wish to go with the recommended option, effectively we're paying more than 90% of this project. How much are we paying then?
Probably we would end up paying slightly more than 90%. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't have those figures.
Right.
In the memo that you got the funding from NZTA. That is what we will get now. So that won't go up. So it could be worked out. But sorry, I haven't got the numbers to hand.
Right. Okay. But sorry, I just the cost to implement is 110k. That's coming out of the 240k remaining in the budget, and then we're spending 36,000 a year to do the maintenance, and that's again coming out of the 240k.
No, that would become an ongoing operational cost.
Right. And how does the final question from me? How does the 36,000k per year compare to other streets in terms of maintenance budgets? Like, do we have a sort of annual cost per street maintenance budget for just regular streets or other central city streets?
I don't off the top of my head. I assume it would be quite high because the road art is quite a large cost.
Right. Okay. So effectively, if we were concerned about the high maintenance cost, we would vote against the road art, but support the other things, and that would reduce the maintenance.
Yes, I think that's probably a fair conclusion. Yeah.
What would it do to the safety?
Thank you.
Other aspects.
Okay.
Just was is it worth reminding councillors what our decision options are here? So
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Sorry.
Mary was actually going to butt in and tell us what we. If it can only correct me if I'm wrong. It can only go back to the hearings panel. We can't. The hearings panel got the ultimate say. Is that right?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, but my understanding is that you've got three options here, which are that you can accept the hearings panel recommendation, you can send it back to the hearings panel, or you can reject the recommendation altogether, which is when it will be removed. So,
Zone 2, I think.
So our current practice, although it's not required legislatively or anything, our current practice is it gets sent back to the hearings panel. We are bringing to the council a potential variation to that process, but today the current practice should stand that you either accept it or you send it back to the hearings panel.
That's all we've got.
Sorry, point of clarification. Rather than custom and practice, what does the legislation allow us to do? I'm talking against my own self-interests.
We'll come back with some advice around the nuances of that.
Okay.
So,
All right. Okay, so we have Timothy.
Thank you. Not forgetting that this was kind of envisaged way back in 2012, and it was for a safe pedestrian connection between Tauranga, Tupai and the Performing Arts Precinct. With that in mind, are we going to stay regularly in touch with, when the court is up, the Court Theatre and also the Isaac Theatre Royal? Because I know that the Theatre Royal are enjoying what's being done with their visitors, so the customers. So is that in a program of works or just in a process? Because it is all about the Performing Arts Precinct and its connection south to Tauranga and across the road to Te Pai?
So council as a whole has a team that stay in contact with those stakeholders on a regular basis. It probably wouldn't be the transport team directly, but council as a whole does stay in touch with those stakeholders anyway.
Because the principle of this whole thing was safe connection between those four major, and technically it's only the Isaac Theatre Royal that's up and running at the moment, but that's the principle behind this, isn't it?
Mm.
And do you think it's been achieved?
That's for you to judge, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, feedback that I've had from the Isaac Theatre Royal and others is that yes, it has. So, but I mean, I was just, yeah.
Right, sorry. Victoria?
Thank you. Carrying on with the Isaac Theatre Royal, on page 163, where we're looking at question 29 asked by Emma Norrish about are there enough P5 parks outside the Theatre Royal?
Which question, sorry?
Question number 29 on page 163.
No, thank you.
So the question was, are there enough P5 parks outside the Theatre Royal for the drop-off and pick-up requirements? The statement there is staff are not aware of any specific issues being raised by the Isaac Theatre Royal in relation to the trial. That's very different to an answer which says there are no issues. So it begs the question, has someone actually asked the Isaac Theatre Royal whether there are sufficient Park 5s outside their theatre?
Let me find their submission, because I do believe that they spoke to it. Apologies, it was a wee while ago.
Yeah, I raised the issue simply because I'm often have to transport my mobility impaired mother-in-law, and needing to drop off and pick up immediately outside a venue is absolutely critical. So I'd appreciate some clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay, good. Jake? Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Just a quick question on what were the numbers of car parks on Gloucester Street prior to the quakes? I know it's changed a couple of times since, but do we know the total of available?
Prior to the quakes, no, we don't. Not off the top of our head, no.
Right. Okay. And then to Tim's points about the connection between Tauranga and the convention centre and the theatre, has there been incidents where people have been at danger crossing between the various sites? Like, are we trying to sort a problem that exists or doesn't exist yet?
So that's probably one for Hannah. So if you can hold on, Will. She's just she's just getting an answer to the question before, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Oh, you'll come back to that? Okay. And then
Yeah,
the
if
other
you
one
can
is,
just give us a second.
At any point, have the court theatre said that they can operate a successful theatre with as little parking as possible around it? Did they mention that?
The court theatre did come and speak to us, and they were supportive of this, and did ask for that time limited. They did ask for the time limited parking in front, so that people could pick up and drop off tickets. They did express concern about the overall parking for the precinct, but not on street parking per se.
Right. So has their view changed since several hundred of them contacted us around the lack of parking in the area last about 18 months ago?
No, but that particular one, remember, was about off-street parking, not on-street parking.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were assured that it was being built in the Catholic precinct, was where all the off-street parking was going to go. So given that that's not looking the greatest.
Actually, you'll recall that we've just had an update on that just recently.
Right.
Just after.
Yeah.
Right. So the multi-level car park on Armour Street is going ahead? Is that the update? Because that wasn't the one I heard.
I said off-street car parking. I didn't say multi-level. But we've had an update
Right,
on
but
that.
it was the multi-level one that, yeah. So the theatre were assured the multi-level one would be able to take the capacity for the theatre, where 90% of their clientele drive to the theatre, and the cities and the country's investing $50 million into a theatre project, the most successful theatre in the country, which will be inaccessible. But
Aaron,
is that
can I just clarify?
Yep.
The court theatre came and they were supportive of this project.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
And that's what's relevant for the decision today.
So,
sorry, can I just add to that as well? So we've been dealing with them on the Colombo Street footpath upgrade as well, and they've given us feedback on parking there. So there'll be additional parking going in on the section of Colombo Street footpath, which is currently behind the hoarding.
Where the fence is.
Which
Yeah.
is not part of this project.
Yeah, which is not part of this project, it's a separate project, but just to note
we-
that they have fed
we
back on
have-
that.
Okay, can I just ask, how's that additional when traditionally that road's been parking from one corner to the other? You can't add more cars, or are we going to angle parking?
Can I please clarify that it's additional to the car parking that is currently there in the trial, which is what the hearings
right,
panel
since we took most
it's
of
what
the
the
parking out,
hearings
yeah,
panel were
okay,
tasked
makes
about
sense.
doing.
Makes sense. No, it's
Yeah.
good. It's good. It's good.
Okay, doke. So we have a mover and seconder. Sorry.
Do you want us to answer?
Yes, please.
Councillor Henstock?
Yes.
So I've just found the Isaac Theatre Royal submission, Councillor Henstock, and they didn't raise any concerns around parking within their submission. And also from my notes from the engagement, the various meetings with them throughout the trial and consultation, they didn't raise any concerns to do with parking numbers.
Here we go.
Okay. And sorry, I just noticed you've got your hand up again, Yanni. Please.
Sorry, I just wanted to really be clear about in the memo. It says that there's $98,000 in the permanent Gloucester Street project that's going to be used for this project, and I thought we'd deleted that project from our LTP. So, can someone just help me understand the difference between the temporary project and how there's permanent project funding also available?
So the permanent project funding was it removed from the LTP, but there was funding in FY24 which was unspent and carried forward.
So effectively, we carry forward funding that we hadn't used, even though we deleted the project.
Yeah.
Because
Alright,
we
does
because
that
we knew
make
that
sense
there was
to anyone?
because we knew that there was this project here. That was through a process, Yanni, that as councillors we signed off on.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, and just I guess like concern at the high cost of maintenance. Is there an ability, like obviously I need to move an amendment around the art? Is that, do we just move an amendment to leave it in
Can't move
place?
an amendment, you reject, you accept or send back.
Yes, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah,
Can I just ask a question then? So if so the street art is part of what brings the amenity but also helps slow down the traffic in the area. What happens if we remove all of that street art and the indications and things?
I couldn't answer that right now. I'd need to go and speak to the design team.
Yeah. But it would have an impact on the project as a whole.
It would likely have an impact on the project as a whole. I suspect it would probably lead to slightly higher speeds, but I can't say without.
Yeah. And the Theatre Royal and others were supportive of the paint, being that they were involved in the design and all of those kind of things.
Yeah, correct.
So effectively, because it's going to come back in 12 months anyway, and we're not going to have to repaint the art within the next year to 2 years, we will get another chance to kind of look at what that cost might be in terms of maintenance. We're not making the ongoing maintenance decision today, are we?
Can I just clarify? It's not coming back in 12 months, Yanni. It's 12 months after the full design is implemented, and that won't be until the court theatre's opened, because the hoardings and things go down, and then the parking goes in, and then it takes a while for it to be in its final state.
Right. So if we make the decision today to support it, we're agreeing to $36,000 a year for the street into the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Potentially that much. I note that we haven't spent that much on touching up things like Ferry Road and stuff with its paint. So.
Are you wanting to get rid of the art in your profile photo?
Pardon me, mate?
To Yanni. You want to get rid of the art in your profile photo?
I can't hear him.
I don't know.
I'm just concerned at $36,000 a year being spent. It just seems to me a huge amount of money when we're very constrained in terms of our budgets. We're unable to do basic maintenance in a lot of areas in my ward, but we've got $36,000 to do what seems to be a very high standard of maintenance.
Are we now in debate?
We might.
So surely there's a way that we can look at that going forward, right?
Okay, Yanni, that's debate, and we're just about to enter it. So it's got a mover and seconder. I had no more questions. Thank you very much. So we'll do debate. You want to go first, Yanni?
I'll wait to hear what others say. I'm still thinking about it. I'd like to listen to the debate.
Debate Department. Timothy.
Yeah, look, this has been envisaged for quite a long time. When you say, was there a need? It's not just about traffic safety, it's about the whole visual impact of an arts precinct. To sit there and do nothing here when we've got this beautiful library, we've got Te Pai, we've got the Isaac Theatre Royal, which is one, if not the greatest classical theatres in this country, and we've got the new Court Theatre. To sit there and just have the plain old road is just sad. To say that, you know, like, was there a risk? There's always a risk crossing a road, no matter where the road is. But to upgrade this and to look at what that's done has really added to this precinct, and it will continue to do so. So I think it's you know, nothing's perfect. We're all human. We all have different tastes or whatever. And I mean, I'm colourblind, so, you know, whatever I see, no one else does. But I think it's a great thing to do, and we've got to move forward. And that's what's really pushing the city forward, is thinking outside the box. And everybody else in this country is looking at Christchurch with envy, and this is why. So thanks to the staff for the work you've done.
Ty?
Thank you, Tim. That's actually inspired me to want to also speak in support of that, because Gloucester Street used to be, I mean, a main thoroughfare of Christchurch, but somebody plonked the Te Pai, the convention centre, in the way. So now it's a road to nowhere, okay? I mean, you know, I quite like Te Pai, but, you know, the reality is it's cut Gloucester Street off in two. And so if you've turned down Gloucester Street in your car, expecting to go somewhere, you're evidently lost. Look, I just opened my browser today and there was this lovely article on RNZ that said, is Christchurch now the coolest place in Aotearoa? And it's got liberal sprinkling of quotes from our eminent mayor that says, who hailed the city's potential as a mini Melbourne. You know, like, this isn't a perfect thing, right? Like, it's temporary, it hasn't nailed everything. You can nitpick about what's wrong with it and what's right with it and all that sort of stuff, but we've tried something, right? That's the key thing. We've actually tried to do something, and I think that it's helping to create a city that we can live in, that is for people and that we can all enjoy, and, you know, and that is actually improving our city and turning it into that thing that's making it so cool. And we're building for the future, and we've been incrementally building that back for the last decade and a bit. And we're immensely proud of this great city that's emerging. You know, I don't expect anybody calling the shots in the North Island to understand that, but we understand, because, you know, this just shows the potential for our city. You know, that this is a small thing, but it is actually part of a larger thing. And that's why I would ask you all to support it, because we actually need to continue to innovate and celebrate that and keep on innovating, even if we don't get it right all the time. So please support it, and I look forward to the next type of project that we do in this regard.
Pauline.
Look, well said, it's hard to top that. But just refer to, I don't know when it was, last week or the week before, that we had a tour through the Court Theatre building, which obviously is in construction, and it's just incredible. And so by the time we get the Court Theatre operating and the Isaac Theatre operating, and you've got Turanga, and they all have children's activities, a lot of them. So I think to make Gloucester Street a slow street, a safe street, an interesting street is a really, really good move for Christchurch. Once you're down there looking at it, it's a really nice place to be. So I'm fully supportive of this today, and I think we also need to recognise the hearings panel for all the work. It does take a lot of work to be on a hearings panel. We've done a good job. It's a great report, and the suggested changes I support those as well. But that's over to staff to give advice on that going forward. So thank you very much, and I'll support this today.
Okay, so we now have Aaron, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I'm actually very supportive of the Performing Arts Precinct, and the whole concept of the area makes a lot of sense, and all the words that have been said about how cool Christchurch is, how much it's going ahead, how we can compare ourselves to Melbourne and places like that. Absolutely true, but let's not forget the overwhelming feedback that we get, not some of you because you live in an echo chamber, but so for us that get out and hear from a lot of people, the overwhelming feedback we hear is that the inner city is inaccessible, and the one thing we're not doing right is access to the inner city parking, on-street parking and on-street traffic flow. Now, you can ignore that if you want, but the reason I didn't join this hearings panel is because I didn't want to get another code of conduct against me, because I knew how it would go when I saw the lineup, and that was my second to last code of conduct, was for speaking out against that. And I tend to go with the public on this one, that they want their inner city, the facilities that they've paid absolutely millions, if not billions of dollars for collectively, to be accessible. They want to be able to take their grandmother, their children to these things. People don't catch the bus. They don't bike to these things. 90% of people drive to these facilities. So we need to facilitate that. But it seems that some councillors would rather be dictators than facilitators. So I will sit with the facilitators this time, and hopefully we will vote this down and make the street more accessible, so we can have a very successful performing arts precinct. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. My Celeste.
I just want to start by thanking the hearings panel. I always think it's good when you get, you know, a group that comes together and works through a process and is really thorough. And I just want to acknowledge all the people that participated in that. And I also would like to just sort of acknowledge the fact that in order for what makes our city particularly cool is the fact that we have parts of the city which are pedestrianised currently, and we've seen the improvements around a lot of those spaces. I think that some of the reactions have been a bit over the top, to put it politely. And I think if we want to move forward as a city, we have to accept that that requires some changes, and that might be at the cost to being able to drive to the front door of the Court Theatre or some other space. But actually, what are we gaining? And that's what we should be focusing on today, is accessibility isn't just driving to the front door, it's actually providing spaces that are safe for all users. So I just want to commend the hearings panel for the work on this, and I'm looking forward to supporting this today.
Okay, my turn then, you're last. Okay. This is democracy. In my opinion, it wasn't necessary in the first place, but it got voted on and it went through. One of the things that, way back in the day, one of the things was, the government are paying us 90% towards it and it's temporary. I would almost guarantee that this will never happen again under this new government. Also, the main thing that I'm struggling with is the cost to remove it, whether it's $230,000 or $240,000. I believe is artificially high, and it's to encourage us to agree to leave it in, because those numbers are there. But the hearings panel made their decision. We have two options in front of us. Yes, we agree with the hearings panel, or no, we fire it back at the hearings panel. That's all we've got. We've got nothing else. I wonder if...
Sorry, point of order. Sorry, I'm just checking to see if you were accusing staff of fudging the numbers.
No, the numbers are not fudged.
Okay.
The numbers are not fudged. The numbers are 230 grand. Yes.
Yeah, but you said you thought it was artificially increased by staff to get an outcome.
I have asked a number of times for staff to give me the exact breakdown of how we got the 230 grand. I have not got that yet. I've got most of it, but I haven't got the main bit from the contractor on how it is. If we'd gone, in my view, if we'd gone back to the contractor and said, we want to leave the paint there, there was no thing to, no one was looking at how we can make it cheaper, right?
You should clarify that you weren't accusing staff of being disgusting.
I weren't. No, I weren't. And no, I weren't, and I wouldn't. They're just putting the information in front of us like they've got it, okay? I still believe that if we left the paint on, it could easily be done for 50 grand. But that's life. That's all we've got. The one thing that I do struggle with is still, and it's not just here, it's on lots of things, how much we're spending on consultants to design this stuff. We have plenty of clever people in our building that could do this with their eyes shut. This is a simple job. There's nothing hard about it. So going forward, we should look at not using consultants to do spending a fortune on simple things. But I cannot support this because I'm not happy with the information that I've got on how the 230 grand was established. That's about it. Yanni, is it?
There's no raised hand.
Yanni.
Thank you. Look, as someone who was concerned at the high cost that council had put for the permanent work to happen on Gloucester Street, I think it is far more sensible to be spending as little as money as possible with flexible options in terms of what happens in this space. And effectively, that's what this project has done. We've got a number of things that are happening currently, but we've also got a number of things that are going to happen into the future, including the opening of the Court Theatre, which will have a significant impact on how the street functions. And until that time, I don't think we can really know what the outcomes of these changes will be. But my preference would be to spend as little money as possible now on this project, given how much has already been spent, recognising that that was a lot less than what council wanted to do in terms of the permanent changes. And I think we can, as we've done with Park Terrace, find more flexible, low-cost solutions to roading and transport traffic changes in these areas, rather than spending some of the massive amounts of money that we are, like, for example, Te Kaha, which is another one where we're spending a fortune. So,
Yes.
I think this is welcome in terms of the ability to use the Waka Kotahi money to get some improvements to make it safer and provide greater pedestrian amenity. I'm a big supporter of arts and colour and vibrancy in our central city, but I do look forward to the Working Party reporting back on how we can look at how we're spending money, because I think the maintenance costs that have been identified are significant, and it does gall me that there's other streets in our suburbs in particular where we struggle to get the basic maintenance done. And if anyone wants to come and look at some of those streets with, stagnant water, green stuff growing out of them, and we're told there's no budget, then, feel free to come on a tour. But I will support this today, and I do commend the hearing panel for the work they've done. Just noting, though, that when the tree policy hearing reported back to council, significant numbers of changes were made by the full council and the mayor to the recommendations of that panel. So it'd also be good to get some advice so that we're consistent with how we make decisions, because again, it does seem a bit unfair that we can't make changes, and maybe we got it wrong on that one, but it is quite different to what's happening with this one, where we're told we can't move any amendments. Thank you.
Okay. Kelly, then Sarah will be last.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm broadly supportive. I was down in the precinct on the weekend. I thought it worked pretty well. I do have a couple of concerns just around. It's really important that we have these sort of spaces where pedestrians and all users can feel free to be safe as they walk around the city. I think we have a few issues, though, getting people into these areas, and I think that I certainly would like to see more opportunities for people from the suburbs to come in and park close. I didn't have a problem because there was really just the one event in there on the weekend, but I could see that being a problem. I'm concerned about ongoing costs. It's the sort of thing that I feel like makes us look a wee bit silly if we're paying 36 grand a year for repainting on average. I applaud the work of the hearings panel, having been on a few. It's a bit of a thankless task, but you do get to see all the ins and outs and get a general feel of what's important. I do like the idea down the track of actually the hearings panel decisions coming to council and then council making the decision. I think that's the way forward. It involves a lot more people in the decision-making process. But I'm relatively happy with what we're trying to do here, but concerned about the ongoing costs, and again, a wee bit concerned that we have to make sure that we can get people into the city and then out again as simply as possible. Buses, cars, whatever it takes, but so they can walk some distance. All right, cheers.
Sorry, Celeste, I did. Yes, sorry, I haven't crossed your name. Sarah, please.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for the debate. I don't think that anything else needs to be said, except for me to thank staff who've done a huge amount of work on this, including plenty of redesign, which added to costs in the early days on council request. But thank you very much, and I'm happy for you to put it.
Okay. So now what just so that we're on the right track here, if we vote yes, it's yes, what you see in front of you, and if we vote no, it goes back to the hearings panel. Okay, there's nothing else we can do. Right, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against?
No.
Right, it passed.
No.
Division.
Righto then. Go, Katie.
Alright, so we'll have a division on item 14, the Gloucester Street trial hearings panel. Deputy Mayor Carter. Councillor Barber.
Yes.
Councillor Coker.
Yes.
Councillor Donovan. Yes. Councillor Fields.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Yes.
Councillor Hemstock. No. The Mayor.
No.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
No.
Councillor McClellan.
Aye.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
Aye.
Councillor Templeton.
And Councillor Peters is here.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Peters, you joined on Zoom?
No.
Okay, that's, yep. All good. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Could I just ask a question through the Mayor? Due to the comments made with regards to the possible leaning of a hearings panel, and there have been a number of other comments over the last few months with regards to working parties, subcommittees and hearings panels in the past, could we look at, through you, Mary, at how we select them? Rather than having people asked and volunteered, we just have a list of councillors and they have to do it, because that would be sharing the load, because it is, and I appreciate the workload of those chairing and also being on it, and I think it's really unfair and shallow for other councillors to accuse councillors of having a leaning before it even starts.
Okay, right. Thank you. We're now moving on to number 15, the DRF fund. Jackie, please. Now you've got a amendment, have you, Andre? Okay. This is
to move the staff recommendation with my number 5 that I've sent through.
right. So it's exactly that plus write the letter. Is that number 5, which I can't quite see at the moment?
We probably need to remove the last bit of that resolution, don't we? Can we highlight that?
So it's everything in blue plus a little black bit at the bottom? Is that what we're getting?
Lovely.
Okay. Right. I think everyone's...
Well, sorry, what I'd also written is noting that we haven't had a response since the letter we sent in November 2023.
Do you want to respond?
Although that is already noted in the report.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's already in...
I'm told staff are going to clarify the response as well.
Yep. Yeah, Samuel, question?
Yeah.
Criticism, I agree. You know, it's good to write. Do you just think we should just write to all Christchurch MPs if we're thinking about how we long-term advocate?
Why not? Yeah, I put those because they were the closest to the actual facility. But all Christchurch MPs, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that would be, you know, if we're looking at trying to get something that might be an easy way.
Totally. Yep.
Cool.
All right. So we have a mover who is obviously who. Sarah's have to move it and Andre's have to second it because he's put the amendment in. You good? Happy? Okay.
No,
So,
it needs to be, it can't be Christchurch minister, it needs to be the minister, so he doesn't need all Christchurch MPs.
yeah, we'll just wait till that's written up. Vote on something that's not written. Never done that before.
And then take out everything.
How's that?
Thanks.
Is that making sense, everybody? Can you see that up there? Right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, that's carried. Right, thank you, chaps. Now up to number 16, tree assessments within Hagley Park. Toby, oh, is it? Yeah, Toby and Roo, is it? This is just information only.
Yep.
Fire away.
Cool. Kia ora everyone. Thanks for having us here today. Up here with me is Brittany. She's the most recent addition to the Parks Tree Arborist team. She is based in Botanic Gardens and looks after Central City and Hagley Park and the Botanic Gardens. Most of what we'll be discussing today will be the work that she is doing as well. We'll be sharing the talk today. We'll keep it pretty brief because it's Hagley Park, you all know where it is, you all know about it. So, but I'll hand over to Brittany and she'll do a few slides and then I'll just jump up at the end and round things off.
Thanks, Toby. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about trees today. I could talk about trees all day, but I will be disciplined and keep my time here. So, slides.
Did we do slides here? Perfect.
Cool. So Hagley Parklands.
Sorry, didn't realise. Yep.
English Parkland, with approximately 6,500 trees. The first planting was recorded in 1858, and a lot of trees that we still have today were planted concurrently, so they're well over 100 plus years in age, and they're in groupings of woodlands and avenues. So approximately 1,300 of those are beside pathways. This table describes how we inspect the trees within the park. So we have various inspection levels. The first one at the top, park inspection. So that's our very capable, very dedicated Hagley Park team. They are on site every day. From quite early in the morning, they undertake general inspections of the park. So they're not just looking at trees, they're looking at other things as well within the park, but they are the ones who quite often pick up on any issues pertaining to trees and notify me directly. We also have a weekly maintenance program, so we have a crew in once a week that I oversee, and then we have my monthly walkovers, which is there under arborist inspection. So I undertake those monthly on a regular schedule, and a walk by is essentially a visual tree inspection from the main pathways throughout the park. And that is in alignment with international recognised best practice. And then we respond to customer service requests, obviously. So any issues that are highlighted by members of the public in terms of tickets that come through our customer service team, they will come to me. And if there's a sense of urgency, then I'll immediately attend in response to those. And then the last point there is just talking about failure records. So we will we have begun recording branch failures within the park. So there's a little bit more detail here about walkover inspections. They just occur on a monthly basis on our main paths. You can see them there. So the first slide, I believe, is the weekly, and then a month, and then that's what's been carried out in a year. And I should obviously point out that is just our formally recorded walkovers, but I'm throughout the park on a frequent basis beyond what you can see on the screen there. So yeah, Toby.
Cool. Thank you, Brittany. So just highlighting there, so we've got regular walkovers, but we also do a walk around the events area, acknowledging that we get those crowds of people come through. So we'll generally do an additional one for those. And then when we have storm events, we'll go out. We'll try and go out before the storm event, or we'll definitely go out after it just to check anything as well. So the trees get looked at a lot. The colours, the red and green, is the different people. So as you can see, Brittany does a lot more of them than I do. And there's also a tendency for me to cut corners by the look of it as well. So as well as those formal assessments, we get around, over the last 12 months, we've had about 38 CSRs. So those also trigger an inspection. So we'll go and look at those specific trees. As Brittany mentioned, we have a tree crew. So they're in there once a week doing work within the park on trees, either as part of the program maintenance or reactive work. We have our contractor scope every quarter. They'll scope out a section, so they also do a thorough look at trees. And then recently we have, based on previous feedback, we've started to record some of the limb failures that have been occurring as well. Just wanted to close things off. Basically, branch fall is a natural occurrence. Same with trees, they occasionally fall down. It's not something we can eliminate, no matter how often we look at the tree, no matter what implement, what devices we use, we can't find everything. We do try and minimise the chance of failures happening, and we certainly try and minimise the chance that a failure might result in harm. And we do this through our regular inspections. We have trained staff. They go on training courses to recognise risk. We use formal risk assessments. We use quantitative and qualitative assessments. We've got matrices, all of those things. Hagley Park gets a lot of care, and we look at a lot of those trees. We've got a regular maintenance program, so the trees are looked after a lot. In general, the risk posed by trees is inherently low, particularly when if you put it in the context of other risks. But that's not trying to belittle people's concerns about trees or the risk, but it's just trying to put a bit of it into context. And this, hopefully, the purpose of this is to instill some confidence that these trees are being looked after and are being maintained. In saying that, we are still doing additional work. So we're coming up with a tree plan, which we're currently developing, and that will look at how we maintain the trees, when we remove the trees, replacement planting, and long-term management of the trees. We've started doing training of our park staff, so giving them additional training to let them know what to look for when they're out there in the parks and not just the arborists. And we're continually updating our asset data on our trees as well. And that's it.
Might be a silly question, but my question's driven by one that I've been asked a couple of times by residents about how do you assess the health of the root structure? And perhaps the question then is, can you determine the health of the root structure by what's going on above the ground? Yeah.
So there's certain indicators that we would look for. So dieback and a canopy, you've probably heard the thing, what's above ground is below ground. So there is a relationship between those. So if you see dieback in the canopy, that will generally represent some dieback in the roots. When it comes to assessing roots, we're generally looking at the impact on the tree stability. So we've got an assessment to determine what size root plate that needs to be. We'll look at the surface, so we'll look at any disturbance, we look for cracking, we look at lifting. We can't go down and check the roots. There's always a partial unknown there, but that's the same with any part of the structure. We don't look into the centre of a tree or anything like that either. So we look for those indicators that will give us an idea that something might be going on there.
Thank you. I think I can answer that question myself next time I'm asked now. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for the care you take of the trees in Hagley Park. Just, would there be any advantage in using drones to assess the upper reaches of the leaves? Would that make any sense? Or?
Not particularly. A majority of the time when a branch falls, there's no indication. So anything that a drone can see, we can generally see as well. A drone would be able to see it from the top. But even with the drone looking at it, it's not always going to indicate whether a branch will fall. I did a risk assessment course last year or earlier this year, and the tutor, don't know if he had the exact figures, but he basically said we could spend all of New Zealand's GDP on assessing trees and probably still have very little difference in the impact of trip branch failures because it's a natural thing.
And just a little follow-up, are there many possums in the forest, and what do you do to mitigate them?
We currently have a pest control program in Hagley Park, so culling once a month. in Hagley Park. So the numbers have dramatically decreased of late, which is great.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I was interested to know is when we get strong winds, do we have a sort of ability to send out a text alert to people in the vicinity of parks? It's just that there's been a few occasions where the parks are still open, and obviously with the high winds and the tree branches being impacted, it seems like with technology maybe there's a better way to kind of inform people that are in closer proximity to the risk areas. So it's kind of two questions really. One is, have we got a kind of understanding of, like, in the big wind events or storm events where the risk areas are? And the second question is, what's the process to notify people as soon as possible to try and minimize the risk?
Yeah, so we try and take reasonable steps. So areas like Botanic Gardens, where we can close that quite easily, we've got gates and we can keep people out, so we'll close those. When it comes to the other park areas, it's not uncommon for us to contact our media team, and they'll put out a Facebook alert and put out alerts just to let people know that there are high winds and just warn people to be aware if you're out in the park that we've got high winds coming. Generally what happens in the really high winds, we start to see trees or branches fall in higher numbers. People aren't generally out anyway because those types of events aren't particularly nice to be out in.
Sorry, do we have the ability to send a text alert?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think you'd have to check with the civil defence team too. They're reluctant to use them for anything unless it's a pretty big emergency.
Okay, right. Moving right along. Just one thing, Toby, is that, and just following along for what Yanni said, I do sometimes when I'm driving through Harbour Ave, is it? Those real tall, long, skinny, trunked pines with a lot of a big sail at the top, which catches a lot of wind. They do worry me. One day, I dare say they'll all come down. I don't want to be the person that says we're taking them down, so I'll get shot. But they are a concern to me because we have had a couple blow over, haven't we?
We have, yep. So we had the one large one come over towards the road.
Mm-hmm.
We inspect those trees on a fairly regular basis, as you've seen, and those are something that we go and have a closer look at after that event. So trees are really stable in their current condition. What they don't like is change. So when that tree did come down, there was a change to the environment. So we have a more thorough inspection. So we look at them fairly regularly. What we have done is we've also, if you go and visit the park, you'll see there's a whole lot of new ones planted, acknowledging that one day those trees will have to come down and we'll gradually remove them.
Excellent. I knew you were on it. I'm happy to move this, and Tim's happy to second it. Put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. That is carried. Well done. Good report. Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, number 17, Christchurch Art Gallery. Claire, please.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Blair Jackson, I'm the Director of Christchurch Art Gallery Te Puna Waiwhitu, and with me is David Sheldon. David manages the teams that are associated with our audience and programs. The report that we've tabled is the final end-of-year reports from the last financial year of our visitor numbers. These are taken on a rolling daily basis, and we get quarterly reports, and this data that we've given you is from our final report of last financial year. I'm going to take this as read, but happy to answer any questions you have about the data, and David is going to take you through a few kind of aspects of last year.
And some really nice pictures. Okay, so this report covers the last financial year previous to this one, in which the gallery welcomed 367,000 visitors through its doors, which is amazing. And that's a really good figure for us and for council and for the city, because it gets us back on track with the levels we were recording pre-pandemic. So we have recovered, and that's great.
Well done.
In the last 12 months, the gallery presented 12 exhibitions over the period, the most significant one of which was the arrival of Te Rā, the Maori sail, which Council and we worked with the British Museum and Auckland War Memorial Museum and Mana Whenua to return the only known Maori sail in existence to New Zealand. And here you can see some weaving experts from across the nation who came to our conservation lab there and worked with our staff and British Museum staff to get their first real close-up look of that amazing piece of art and tangwa. That exhibition itself created quite a stir. Over its run, it attracted 55,000 visitors, just shy of 55,000 visitors to see specifically it. And it created quite a stir in the national press as well, because it was such a significant moment. The Dawn Mihi Whakatau, pictured here, was led by Naya Tuhuriri and was attended by over 100 VIPs from across the nation. It was really cool. The public programmes during this period attracted or hosted 23,500 visitors, and that's kind of lectures, talks, films, gigs and tours. And here you can see one of the gallery's volunteer guides talking to a group called Alzheimer's, and we work with Dementia Canterbury, and they come into the gallery and have very relaxed and kind of nurturing sessions about the art that we have on display. We're very proud of that particular programme. The period also saw over 12,500 participants in the schools programme, and we managed to gain funding from CADFAS and Rata Foundation in that period as well to get schools into the gallery who were struggling with transportation costs or struggling passing those transportation costs back to the families of their children in their care. The gallery gauges its performance, partly anyway, by measuring how much visitors feel they align with certain visitor statements, certain gallery statements. And so I can give you some statistics to how the public is aligning with some of them. 91% of people asked agreed that the gallery is an important cultural institution. Similar number trusted the information that the gallery provides. 85% agreed that the gallery offers relevant exhibitions, a relevant programme, and it expands thinking and encourages dialogue. The overall satisfaction rate for our visitors to the gallery was 95%, which is just fantastic, really. We're also beginning to use data that we collect to measure visitors' well-being. We feel it's an important thing for us to be able to say and talk about how visiting a gallery and visiting our gallery and our exhibitions can make one feel about the rest of their lives. We've been doing some work with a startup company called QWB Lab, and we've also crossed over with some work with our library colleagues as well. And the results are really encouraging, and something I'd encourage you all to talk about as much as you can. And the overall kind of statement is that people who come to the gallery and have a visit, by and large, feel better about themselves and their lives post-visit than they did pre-visit. People who've been feeling anxious feel less anxious. More people feel that their day is satisfying, and 90% of people we asked felt happy after a visit to the gallery, which I think is really nice. Okay, so just to kind of conclude before questions, looking at the next half of this year, we'll be opening the doors to a total of 8 exhibitions. We plan to welcome 130,000 visitors, and of that total, 13,000 of them will take part in the public programme, and there'll be another 5,000 participants in the schools programme. So we're determined to and succeeding at keeping the gallery at the heart of our cultural powerhouse city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we have a couple of questions. We have Andre and Kelly.
Thank you. Do you know a rough proportion of what percentage of your visitors are from out of town?
Yes.
So apologies if I missed
that
it.
data in here, but I can get that to you.
Yeah,
Get it quite detailed as well if you want.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, there we go. Thank you.
Cal?
Yep. Thank you very much for your presentation. Great to see that you're engaging with children. Do you engage with high schools at all? Do you have like visits from high school age?
Yes, we do. Quite a few. They generally come as what we call self-guided visits.
Yeah.
So they don't take part in the program that we put on for them. And the reason for that is the numbers are less than those primary and intermediate schools, simply because to bring a secondary class out of a school involves a lot more work for the school, because you're taking a subject teacher out with a class for the day. So all the other classes who aren't coming out don't get to see that subject teacher. So we do see less.
They also, high schools tend to be travelling with their art teacher or visiting with a specialist, whereas the primary schools, they rely on our specialist art educator.
Have you had any thoughts about maybe running an art competition for local high schools where their art could be displayed in the gallery to encourage that?
Annually, we display the best of the secondary school arts portfolios.
Yeah.
It's not a competition, but it's a regular event in our calendar where the best of the art portfolios from across New Zealand are shown at the gallery. Yeah.
And just one final question: the art in my house is mostly landscapes that from where I grew up in Canterbury, etc. Have you ever considered doing a local landscapes, exhibition, for want of another word?
You'll really enjoy the current exhibition that we've just opened, which is all about the land. Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame. I didn't know it was on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep up, will you? Keep up. Tyrone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Blair, and thank you, David. And congratulations on delivering a world-class art gallery in our city. I'm so proud and that we've got such a thing. It's really quite something. And my question's kind of a little bit along the lines of the previous two. And 300,000 plus visitors, which is fantastic. Tick over 1,000 a day. It's similar to the museum. What can we do? And you deliver beyond your levels of service. And so, what can we do as a city to sort of I mean, I don't know what the capacity of the gallery is in terms of visitor expectation. Can it cope with 1 million visitors a year? And I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there. But what are the things that we can do to help drive that visitor quantum, if you like, and support you in sort of getting more people there? Is it more money? Is it more promotion? What are the things that we can do?
More promotion is always a good thing. I think we have to be fairly realistic in that we have a city of however many hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Not all of those will come, and our ideal situation would be that everyone comes and enjoys the art, because it is for all of them, and it's a really mixed exhibition schedule, so there is something that over a period of time everyone will feel comfortable engaging with. So it's just getting people aware that it's there and is relevant to them. More money would be good too, Tyrone.
But we could always use with more money. Could I just a quick follow-up, please, Mr. Mayor? Is there a noticeable uptick on cruise ship days, by any chance?
Yeah, there has been. It depends. It's changed over the last few years about where the buses are parking as they come into town. They were for a couple of years parking right outside the art gallery. So our bathrooms were the first stop from the long trip over through Makaroa. But now, as they're coming to town, there's a significant number still come to the gallery, but it's far less than it was, and it is really the more kind of explorers. We have some of our volunteers work on the trams and are also involved in the welcoming cruise ship visitors, so they're always our kind of our welcome and telling people that the gallery's there.
Brilliant. And Andre.
Thank you. Are you able to tell me how you extract donations from visitors when they come?
We have a range of systems in place. So we have obviously the old-fashioned donation boxes, but we've moved a lot to electronic donations of recent years, and we've increased the number of those around the building and that kind of messaging from our front of house team. And
have you got the wee tap on
yes,
doofars?
Correct.
Yeah, nice one.
Yeah.
And how have they gone? Like compared to the classic donation box?
It's steady. Some of the donations are slightly larger, which is good. But it's on average, it's pretty similar. The whole system's just recently changed because the system we were using is no longer compliant, so we've switched to a new supplier. So we're just really getting to grips with the data and working out what's going on.
Cool, thank you.
Righto, thank you. So the mover is Sarah, and the seconder is Jake. So there won't be any debate on this because it's good. So I'd like to put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you so much for keeping us up to speed. That's great. Okay, now resolution move into public, exclude the public as set out in pages 185 and 187. Sam's moving it and Victoria's seconding it. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That's carried.